the enemy's not going to expect this. We're going to have the AC-130 fire on both sides of the road, going up this road that went up to the infill HLZ. And as we're running, we're just going to, at this point, there's nobody here that's not here to party. So we're going to throw hand grenades over the walls, and we're just going to run.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tracer Burnout. I'm Roger.
And I'm Dan.
And it is a great day here in the studio. Spring has sprung here in Fayetteville, and the pollen is upon us.
Spring has finally arrived.
So it's mixed. I mean, obviously the warm sunshine, all that's beautiful. The birds are out, and the pollen.
And the bees.
So many bees.
Yeah.
So, a couple admin points. We are moving some stuff around on our website. So if you go to our homepage at tracerburnout.com, we've moved some things. We've added our quick hits down at the bottom of the homepage as well, in addition to our main episodes, and then our back catalog remains where it's always been. Also, we're moving up to the top of the page our Support Us button. So we would really appreciate if y'all would click on that and just donate a little bit of money. It helps us keep this thing going. So much appreciated on that.
Yes. $1, $2, it helps defray some of the costs.
It does indeed.
Yes.
So thank you for that in advance. And Dan, you have something you'd like to share with us?
Yes. We got a message from David, and he talked about how he had been listening to the show since the beginning, which of course, David, we truly appreciate.
Thank you.
But he also said, keep up the great work. It has made me ask a ton of questions of my dad's single term in the Navy in the 50s. He doesn't bring things up, but will talk when asked.
Yeah.
So, awesome, David. Awesome. Keep asking those questions. Yeah. And anybody else out there, if you've, your service member that you work with or is a parent or a sibling probably has plenty of stories that they've never told you before. So ask. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, if this show can kind of serve as a catalyst for opening up those conversations with friends and family, then that's a success for us.
It is indeed. So keep asking those questions, David.
So, and if anybody else has any messages they'd like to send us, we read all of them. You can go to our traceburnout.com. There's down at the bottom of the homepage, there's a contact us form. Just fill that out. We get everything. There's also the myriad of ways to contact us on social media, of course.
Yes, and of course Roger will then see those because he is the social media savant of the two of us.
Savant, that's charitable. Thank you.
Far more so than I.
So, okay. Well, without further ado, we present to you Army veteran Chuck Ritter. Stay tuned.
Enjoy.
Good morning, Chuck. How you doing? Thank you, and welcome to Trace Burnout.
Hey, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
We reached out to you about a year ago while I was still going through my retirement process, and this show was very young, and you made good on your promise to come on the show, so we appreciate that.
Yeah. I was like, man, I was going through my list. I'm like, whoa, I dropped the ball on that one. Let me.
We appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah. So we'll get started the same way we always do. Does your family have a history of service?
Actually, yes. So my mom was in the Air Force as an officer, and she retired after 20-something years. And my dad was in the Air Force as an enlisted man, and he met my mom in Japan during the Vietnam War, and he went back and forth between being like an E5 up to E8, I believe, a couple times. And then,
as one does.
Yeah. And I didn't know about all these stories until they started having these Air Force reunions. And I'm like, whoa, like, are these, I don't even know if I want to know these stories. This is crazy.
Through administrative action or through adverse action?
I don't know. There was one story one time when him and they'd come out of whatever they're doing in Vietnam, and I think they were in Japan, and they'd stolen an ambulance and invited a bunch of nurses up to a little hilltop party and got in trouble for that, and that ended up in a demotion. So just I was like, man, I need to. And that was when I was hearing these stories. I was like 8, so I was like, man, this is kind of traumatizing.
I know, like in Korea, they say that the quickest way to make sergeant in Korea is to arrive as a staff sergeant.
Yeah, I can see that, right?
Okay. Well, with both of your folks in the Air Force, why did you choose the Army?
Ooh, I didn't really have a choice. You want to dig into this story right now? Because it's pretty interesting. I've told this story a couple times now. And in fact, I was in a James Patterson book recently that Matt Eversman from Black Hawk Down fame, he is a friend of mine. He's on our board of advisors for Objective Arte. But he's like, hey, I want to put you in this book. It's a bunch of stories, incredible stories, right? And it has what I'm about to tell you. It's probably the first time it's been written. But when I was younger, I was a hoodlum. I worked at Radio Shack, had a $70,000 credit card fraud charge on me. At one point, my parents, or my mom specifically, used to sleep with a gun under her pillow because she was not terrified of me, but she didn't trust me doing a lot of drugs and whatnot. And I failed my first drug test for the military, believe it or not, in 1996. I joined in 1998, but I was going to this special school because I was so bad because I'd skipped so much school. I was doing so much stupid stuff. It was a school stood up for pregnant teens and for people that come out of juvenile hall. And you went like 20 hours a week. And I was messing around. I had one algebra class left. I could have graduated like a year early, but I just had this one algebra class. Instead of doing this class, I would show up and I would just go up under the desk and sleep like for my required time for the day and then go home. It was pretty dumb. But the recruiting office was next to this Radio Shack. So unbeknownst to the recruiters, I had this little credit card scheme going on to where I had photographic memory. People come in and memorize their credit card information. They leave. I'd charge something like $2,000, $3,000 of their car, $1,000. I'd immediately refund it back to them so they wouldn't get charged. But there was a flaw in the system where if you did that within a certain amount of time, it would take it off the inventory. So it was just in La La Land. So I'd put it out by the dumpster and then sell it, right? And I did that for a while. Then I got busted because I'm an idiot. But anyway, so I was talking to this recruiter, and he was like, hey, you keep telling me you don't want to join because you haven't finished school. I'm like, yeah. So I hadn't heard from him for a while. I'd broken into my parents' house because they made me sleep in the travel trailer when they went on vacation or whatever because they didn't trust me, rightfully so. But anyway, I threw this huge party at the house, and I was cleaning up on a Sunday. I'm all hungover, and I get this knock at the door. And I'm in my underwear, I find a shirt, and I'm like all hungover, and it's this recruiter in uniform. And I'm like, man, this is kind of wild. I can help you? And he's like, yeah, we were talking like for a year, maybe more than a year, but you joined the Army. You kept saying that, you wanted to join, and your parents were in the service, but you hadn't graduated high school yet. I'm like, yep, that's true. He's like, well, I have your transcripts. I have your high school diploma here. It's like the school has agreed to graduate you. You just got to go with me to MEPS tomorrow and join the Army. I'm like, oh, man, okay. So
that's an interesting recruiting tactic.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite to join the Army and go to jail.
He must have been hurting, right? Like, he was like, man, I need some numbers. Like, who do we got? Like,
I don't know. I mean, that kind of sounds like the school was ready to just get rid of you.
Maybe that too. I don't know. It could have been a combination of many things, right? So I was like, oh, man, what am I going to do? So I called up one of my friends. I was like, hey, how much marijuana you got? And he's like, why? I was like, I got a drug test I can't pass tomorrow. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to fail a drug test? I'm like, man, it makes perfect sense if you just don't think about it. Get over here. So I went to MEPS the next day, and I got my high school diploma, my transcripts, right? And then it was like a week later. In my mind, it was like 2 days later he called, but I know that's not real. But he called, and he was like, hey, there's a problem. You can't join the Army. You failed the drug test. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I've never done anything wrong with my test.
Who knew? Oh, man.
So, 2 years later, I went to college. I had a free ride because my mom was an instructor there. She was a nurse in the Air Force, and then she was an instructor at this college. I had a free ride to this community college, and I did not do well there. In fact, I failed bowling class. And when I failed bowling class, I was like, man, I got to do something with my life because this just isn't going to work. And I was doing well. I always had a job. I was pretty responsible. I was mischievous, but I was fairly, smart about what I was doing. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I think I have to join the service. One of the services has to, if I don't do that, if I don't make a drastic change right now, like I'm just not going to make it. And then I went to the recruiters, and because I'd failed that drug test, I had to get letters from congressmen, letters from local officials saying that I was a changed man. It was a real pain in the butt. In fact, that and the credit card stuff has haunted me on every security clearance for my entire career up to this day, right? I got to spend like an extra hour, like just,
happy to glad.
Yeah, like this is what happened. This is why I was a complete idiot coming in, and even when I did join, I was very out of shape and I was embarrassing. I scored 93 or 94 points in my first PT test out of 300. It's 180 to pass at basic training. The whole you can walk, but it's not recommended thing. I took that to heart. Yeah.
It's not the lowest PT score I've ever seen.
Yeah.
No, but it's really. I don't even. I was like a 24-minute 2-mile run. I think I did.
I think I could cartwheel it. And
So I don't know how you score lower than that. Like, how do you do
challenge
that?
accepted.
It is possible. I have seen it.
That's like, I think that's like 14 push-ups too. I don't remember. It was like,
Where were you living?
that was in Texas.
You were in Texas,
Yeah, I grew up
okay.
in East Texas, a little town called Lufkin, Texas.
Okay.
What school was it that your mom was instructing at?
Angelina College.
Because it sounds a lot like Greendale Community College.
Greendale.
I've never heard of a bowling class. I was waiting for you to follow that up by saying you had also failed ladders.
Yeah. I mean, I failed some real classes too, but that was like, how do you fail bowling class? Really, are you just going to show up and throw a ball down the lane? How do you...
Nicolas Cage.
It's not like you're writing papers and whatnot. It's
Nicolas Cage, idiot or genius?
Okay, so you end up actually getting in. And what was your MOS?
I was an infantryman, so somehow I still managed to get my. I wanted to be an infantryman. They let me be in 11 Bravo. Got my station of choice, Hawaii. They gave me a nice bonus. So somehow I still made out well, and luckily I got to a unit with some really good leaders who invested in me. They're like, okay, this guy's kind of a DB, but we need to get him to where he needs to be, and I think that really set me up for success for the rest of my career.
And this was in '98.
This was '98, yeah.
When you got to Hawaii?
Yeah, so February '98 is when I went to basic and then AIT. So it's like 4 months long for infantry. So sometime in the summertime, I reported to Hawaii.
Well, those leaders, I mean, they must have seen something in you for them to invest something in you. I mean, as a leader yourself, you've had to probably make those triage decisions on this is somebody who we're just going to get them over the finish line, and then this is somebody where we're going to invest.
Yeah, people have said that before. I don't think they saw anything in me. I think that I just had some people that knew that their job as leaders was to, even though this is probably a lost cause, my job as a leader is to invest in them. And maybe that's a waste of time, maybe it's not, but I have to dedicate, you got to cut it off at some point, right? Yeah. I've fired plenty of people. I was like, okay, hey, you're not meeting the standard. We're going to put you on probation. I'm going to dedicate time to you every day to try to help you out. And then, generally what happens is the person themselves, like, I'm not, you're wasting your time on me. I'm sorry. I'm not making the cut, generally what happens. But luckily, I don't think they saw anything in me because I don't think there was a hole to see. They made me take a PT test like every single week until I actually scored well. Because when I showed up at basic, I was like, oh man, I got like a 212 now. I'm like, I'm awesome. And they were like, you can't be showing up to an infantry unit with a 212.
You're gonna be taking a PT test every week until you get the fitness badge.
A lot of books they gave me. It was like, hey, you are gonna have tests on basic infantry, tactics and knowledge, and because they made me do that, it really ingrained that kind of culture in me.
Yeah.
Like, hey, even when I went to special forces, like, no, Army doctrine is important to understand and know, and even in all my combat deployments, I've never found anything that's really better than basic infantry tactics on the battlefield. And that stuff's it's key to understand the box. But Soft likes to say we operate outside the box. We're like, okay, well, if you can't define the box first, you're not actually operating outside the box. You're just pulling things out of you behind.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So how long first, how long was your original enlistment?
3 years. I think it was a 3-year enlistment. Yeah.
So how long did it take into those first 3 years before, I guess, you started actually feeling like I can really do this?
I never had anybody ask me that question. I don't know. Let me think about that for a second. Probably. I mean, I was always,
because 3 years isn't that much. I mean, you take away basic training, you take away your your transit, your in processing, and you're already 6 to 8 months in to your 3-year window. And in the late '90s, I think the ETS window was a year. So you've got about a year, maybe a year and change of active time before it's crap or get off the pot decision time.
Decision window.
So
probably, I think about a year in was I could finally do like 5 pull-ups. I couldn't do 1 pull-up in the base training. I could do more than 5 at a time, but that's when I was really scoring well. And I think when I got my expert infantryman's badge, and I was like, okay, because the first time I did my EIB, I bowload. So it was maybe like a year and a half in, and when I got my EIB and I was actually in shape, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm fairly competent right now in what I'm being asked to do, and that's a pretty good feeling. I'm not just over here, like that person taking a PT test every week or struggling or taking all this leader's time because they got invested in me type of thing. Yeah, it's about a year and a half in.
You failed your EIB the first time.
Mm-hmm.
What was your third no-go?
What was it? It was grenades. Yeah, it was grenades.
It gets so many people.
It was mortars, grenades, and then something else that was really dumb, like that I shouldn't have failed, like like telling somebody to halt, like that one. Like there was something that I failed that was really stupid, and then grenades is like sometimes it's just hit or miss.
Yeah.
So sometimes it really is, and then depending on the weather and the terrain, sometimes that grenade body just gets stuck in the snow or in the mud and doesn't bounce or roll the way you had planned for it to. Or maybe the ground's a little bit rocky and it bounces outside of that 35-meter ring.
You're doing all this at Schofield.
Yeah. Schofield Barracks.
That's the terrain there's interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a good first duty station because you got no choice but you're gonna get some grit, like because that terrain will tear you down,
it'll rip you up,
and then you learn to love it. I remember every Saturday we would wake up and go running up Coley Pass up into the mountains and back down. You just kind of like learn to embrace the suck a little bit and use it to your advantage.
A lot of soldiers have a love-hate relationship with Hawaii. Mm-hmm. I was never assigned there, but I did a ton of training in TDYs there, and it was great to visit. But I never actually had to live there. So
I got like whatever it's called, island fever or whatever. Yeah. So I think 3 years would probably be like my max. I was ready to get out of there when it was time to get. I was like, you can only drive around the island so much, and I like to travel, and it's an interesting place to live too. It's one place where like soldiers really aren't that well liked there, so you got to kind of watch your back.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So it took you about a year to get to where you were comfortable, and now it's creeping up on re-enlistment time.
Mm-hmm.
And this would have been 99, maybe 2000. What made you decide to want to stay in?
I just enjoyed it. I really liked the infantry. I really loved the Army at that point in time. I enjoyed the culture. I even enjoyed getting smoked all the time. And
you're not supposed to enjoy it.
I don't know. It was, people complain a lot, like, oh, you're going to be doing a lot of dumb stuff in the military. Like, well, yeah, if you don't know that coming in, like, then you didn't do your homework.
Oh, no. I was
due diligence.
I was referring to getting smoked.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to enjoy it. Obviously, your team leader wasn't doing it right.
Oh, they were doing it because we'd make these stupid things like, hey man, I need you guys to smoke me because I need to do better on this PT test coming up, right? So it was kind of a thing. So I would intentionally do stupid stuff to piss off some of my team leaders, and they knew it. It was like a game, and like, all right, Chuck, you've only done 3 stupid things today. What else are you going to do? And I do something, nothing really dumb, but like go like throw a piece of their equipment or something, and they have to smoke me, right? Like, so it was like a game we had, and I wanted at the time. I was like really like, okay, I'm doing PT in the morning with everybody. I'm going to the gym at lunch, and I'd go run and do something else at night. And in between, I was just in this mode of like, I gotta be able to score 300 on the PT test, and it felt good. You get addicted to excellence, really. I guess.
Yeah.
Was that really the biggest stumbling block that you had coming in was the physical fitness level? I mean, obviously it was in basic training and it continued on, but that's
not the biggest one. No, I've always had like learning issues. Like when my parents spent a ton of money on like Sylvan Learning, tutors, so I have to learn differently than other people. So, I probably have a little bit below average intelligence, and I'm fine with that. I embrace it. But the way I have to learn, it takes me longer to learn things, but when I do learn them, I generally understand them at a much deeper level because of the way I have to input the stuff into my head. Yeah. So it's also a strength, right? But that's a problem with me with learning. So it would take me a little longer to learn some of the concepts that they were throwing at me that they wanted me to learn. But then when I did understand them, it's like it's actual critical thinking where I could break it apart and put it back together just because that's how my mind works, even before getting blown up and having a lot of brain damage. But also just super uncoordinated. Like I was the person always picked last in sports. And it wasn't just like I was out of shape. Like, my body's like, I don't know how to move my arms, type of stuff.
You mentioned earlier you had a photographic memory that you were using, for ill at first. Is that something that's going to come in handy later?
It came in handy up until I got blown up in 08, which I don't have it anymore. But it came in very handy, like in the Q course. One of the things I was kind of famous for going through the Q course, with the people, we're not like famous, but like people like, man, you have the ability to look at a map and you can look at it for 5 minutes and you can plan out a route and you can put away and not look at it again for like 13 miles.
That is impressive.
And it helped. It also hurt me in selection because I'd get a little bit too cocky and I'd be like, oh, I got it. And then I would like, be thinking about like whatever. And then I'd blow past the one road that I'm looking for. I'm like, oh man, okay, now I got to like go back. But I was still able to do it. I remember one day I lost my map and I had to make my way all the way back to the where the map was. And it was like, at that point, like 4 miles away. But because I had a photographic memory, I could see the map in my head. So it was like, that helped. I mean, it put me behind. I still passed, obviously.
This is the star course?
Yeah, it's
okay.
the star course.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's, the photographic memory thing was cool. I don't have it anymore. I took a lot of brain damage to do a lot of cognitive therapy. So it's been, I kind of miss that.
Brother. Me too. I've had my brain scrambled a few times too. Right. Okay, so infantry. So you re-up. You stay on Hawaii or you go elsewhere at this point?
No. So when I re-upped it, I think I could have this backwards. I believe I had already gone to selection. I went to selection in 2000. So I think I went to selection and I re-upped right when I came back.
And this would have been just before 9/11.
This was before 9/11.
2000.
Yeah. So just before 9/11, went to selection, passed, came back, re-enlisted. And at the time, I'd made the decision that I didn't want to go to SF. I made the decision that I wanted to go to the 82nd because I talked to some people and I had this dream like, I want to go to like the Delta Force. I want to do this cool other stuff. And some people would advise me like, hey, well, if you want to do that, you need to go spend some time in an airborne unit first, then maybe go be a Green Beret, then you can go do this thing. And all that is like stupid advice that doesn't make any sense now that I think back on it, right? But obviously people that obviously have no idea, like giving you advice, like it's interesting in the military.
But pre 9/11, right? So very, very different mindset about everything. Yeah. Okay.
And I enjoyed the infantry too. It's like, man, I like the 82nd. I learned how to jump out of airplanes, and I like the culture. I like at the time, like you're just doing a lot of hard PT and rucks, and you're just out in the field just sucking for no reason, and a lot of the rules don't make any sense. And you're JRTC, and you're not allowed to take your helmet off for like a full 2 weeks for absolutely no reason, or you get yelled at, like stuff like that. But it was like, it's a cool life. I like it.
Running around in your spits and starch.
Right. Yeah. And getting smoked in your spits and starches on a Tuesday. You're like, I gotta
like this is supposed to last me all week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you ended up not going to the 82nd and decided to go to selection. So
Swick called me one day and they're like, hey, you passed selection. You see you're on orders for the 82nd. So we deleted them and you're going, here's your Q course date. And I was like, thought about it for a second. I was like, I'm fine with that, and that was it. Because at the times, still, like, we can't get the numbers in to really fill, like, the numbers we need. At the time, they're running the same problem, so I'm sure they did a scrub. And they're like, okay, everybody that passed selection, where are they at? And then that was just kind of that.
Well, at SWIC, it's all about the valves, right? On, off, because it's about those numbers. So you do a permanent change of station from Hawaii to Fort Bragg in order to attend the qualification course. Did you, refresh my memory, did you get to choose which track you were going to take as far as which committee you were going to?
I mean, you get to put your
preferences,
but I don't think I got any of them. And then I did airborne on the way en route.
Okay, yeah.
And I broke my left ankle my first jump in airborne school, so I was in a cast. And airborne school at Benning, they're like, hey, now your needs of the Army, you're not going to do the Q course. I was like, yeah, but since I understand the rules, I know that a unit can't PCS you if you're in a profile. So I quickly drove all the way to SWIC with a cast on, right out of the emergency room, signed into SWIC, and then they had to hold me, and then I was able to go back to airborne school. I was set in the basement pulling CQ for forever, and then I started the course in 2001.
Well played, though. Well played.
Yeah, it worked in my favor. But they told me, they're like, hey, you're just sitting on our books. Like, really, once you get out of this cast, you got about, I think they gave me 1 month. You got to go back to airborne school in a month. They're like, you're going to go back to needs in the Army. So you got out of the cast, trained up, and went back.
I don't know what it is now, but the recovery time used to be twice the time of your profile. So if your profile was 2 weeks, you had 30 days to recover.
Yeah, they didn't care about that. They were like,
I mean, this
that wasn't the thing. They were just like, hey, got it, but like you're going somewhere, you know, just not here if you can't pass airborne school. So like, oh, okay.
So second time go.
Yeah.
Turn around, return back to Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
Were you coming off of a broken ankle? Were you nervous about that first jump this time?
Oh, yeah. But I learned my lesson the first time. The first time, I thought the cadre was yelling at me to the speaker. He was like, pull your slip. And I was like 150 feet. I'm like, well, this seems like a bad idea. So I pulled it. And then when I landed, he was like, hey, I know you probably think I was talking to you, but I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to this other guy that was like 50 feet off the ground. But yeah, he landed like a sack or whatever. So
Yep. Above treetop level.
yeah, he's like, your PLF was perfect, but you just can't come in that hard.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
That's why they call them crash tents, right?
Yeah, so he was understanding that. I was like, yeah, it happens, man. Sorry.
Okay, so return to Bragg, and you're now on the Q course. Which committee are you on?
18 Bravo, so I was a weapons sergeant.
Okay.
So I don't think that was my first choice. It might have been. I know for sure I didn't pick French, and I know for sure I didn't pick third group. That's what I got. So it was weapons sergeant, French, third special forces group was the layout.
Did you have, because you've talked about, your learning difficulties, was learning a new language
Yeah,
that much more difficult?
It's always been difficult. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not the kind of guy that really learns a language. I mean, I scored well enough. I scored a 2.2 on the DLPT many times, but it takes a lot of effort. Generally, anything physically or even anything like learning-wise, I feel like I have to put 2 or 3 times more effort into it to kind of get the level everybody else does, which it's kind of weird. I have to get very dedicated into whatever I'm doing, and people are like, oh, you're obsessed with this. Like, I'm not really obsessed with this, but if I don't do this, I cannot get to the level I need to be at.
Yeah.
So,
Did you have, because those weren't your first choices, was there a sort of, not resentment, that's not the right word, but a kind of a reluctance maybe?
no.
I mean, French, dude. French. Really?
Yeah. No, I didn't enjoy learning French, but I did.
Who would?
Yeah.
He's anti. He's a Gaulophobe.
I mean, I like croissants, so it's
Who doesn't?
right. A good, a good pain au chocolat, a good croissant.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's good stuff.
But I did get to work with the French once. Oddly enough, even though I was in Third Special Forces group my whole career, which has Africa, right? I never got a chance to go to Africa. All my combat deployments were other places, so I never got a chance to practice my language.
Yeah.
I still had to test out on it.
That's a very military thing.
Yeah.
We are going to teach you all this really cool and amazing stuff, and then you'll never use it.
Yeah.
Tagalog.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Never get to use it. It's cool though. But yeah, now I wasn't resentful. I was cool with it. I was a little resentful for at first was because they were doing what was called the 750 ramp up at the time, where they didn't have enough SF people, so they're like, hey, we got to ramp the production numbers up to 750 people a year, and we don't have the cadre to do that. So they took 30 prior infantry guys that had EIBs, and they made us guest cadre back at phase 2 for 6 months after we graduated. So I graduated, signed in the third group. They're like, hey, you're getting on a plane in 2 weeks. We're going to Afghanistan. I'm like, woo, and they're like, hey, we're just kidding. You're going back out to the camp, but call temporarily on temporary orders, and then I went out there as an instructor at the small unit tactics phase for 6 months.
So this is post 9/11 now.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So where were you on 9/11?
I was in Hawaii. I remember, yeah.
Oh, you're still in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the time I was married and got woken up by the wife. She's like, hey, my parents just called me. You got to watch the news. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then getting into post that day obviously was crazy. It took like an hour and a half. It used to take me about 5 minutes to get in there. And yeah.
Had you already been to selection?
I'd already been to selection.
So you knew SF was in your future, and then 9/11 happened. So that's okay. Just kind of mapping it out.
But I think at that point I was still going to the 82nd in my head. I think it was shortly after that, if I remember correctly, where SWIT called and said, hey, we deleted your orders. You're actually coming to the Q course.
Okay.
And I just didn't argue against it. I was like, okay.
Okay.
What was your reaction to 9/11?
Man, I gotta think back. I just remember I was in disbelief, really. Like, oh, wow, we're getting attacked on the homeland. That's by who? That's kind of crazy. At the time, they're like, there's all these other craft out there that are possibly hijacks. You're like, man, is there something like above us? You don't know for the whole day. And it's not like today where you have the smartphone. So once you're away from the TV, you just don't know what's going on. So you're waiting in line, you get to your unit, they don't know what's going on. So at the time, like, we didn't have the information flow that we have now. So you're just, thinking about, well, what's going on? Or is this like, are we at war? Like, we probably had a little bit more patience back then for information before jumping to conclusions. But
well, you were constantly waiting on the word.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I remember that first day there, like, you were there late, you're putting out concertina wire around, everybody just fortified the bases because nobody knew what was coming at the time.
Do something, right?
Right?
Yeah. Do something.
Posts were open. They didn't. It's not like now they check an ID card. I look at the sticker and they're like, come on through. Now they shut everything down. Everything took forever, and everything became like every installation became like Fort Knox, and it was wild.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so back forward again. They told you were going to go to Afghanistan. Haha, just kidding.
Yeah.
SUT.
That was kind of a punch in the gut, but it was good. We went out. It was interesting. We went to SUT. I went there with one of my buddies, Kevin Owens, a little Irish guy, also prior infantry guy, obviously, because he wouldn't have gone out there. But they took all of us in the cadre there, and they brought Fort Benning down the infantry tactics certification course, which trains you all the way up to the brigade level, but very very heavy tactically at the bottom level. And out of all the cadre that had even been there for a while, like I got the distinguished honor grad, and Kevin got the honor graduate. So we're like, what are we doing here? Like some of those guys failed the test. It's like, what are you guys doing out here? So that was kind of cool. And then being a cadre out there was actually it was pretty good as far as like checking the ego a little bit and getting re-blued on all that basic stuff again.
Reinforcing all that
because
stuff.
when you're teaching it, right, it's different than knowing it and going through the course. Now when you're actually teaching it to multiple classes and then watching people and applying that, it was pretty good.
Just because you know how to do something, that's not going to make you a good teacher.
No.
Yeah.
No. And then you learn faults in your own ways and systems when you're like, oh man, okay, like, because our egos are our own worst enemy, right? We always fool ourselves into thinking that we're more awesome than we already are, or that we actually are. So that was cool, like to really kind of hone my own skills and be able to teach a little bit, because I'd never been an instructor like that, at that level where you're teaching X amount of people. So yeah, it was good. I was pissed at the time, but looking back on it, I'm like, no, it was actually really good for my entire career.
Good.
So you wind up. How long did you do that?
6 months.
Okay.
Some people were stuck out there for a year. It's supposed to be a year-long gig. A couple of us were able to get out of it with, smooth talking.
Is that what we'll call it?
But during that time that you're at Camp McCall doing SUT and as an instructor, 9/11's happened, Afghanistan, we're now in OEF at this point, officially. So you go back to third group after 6 months, I'm guessing.
Yep.
How long are you down in the third group before you?
It was like 2 weeks again. So there was another
it was
battalion that was going in. Yeah.
There
There was another battalion going in. We signed in. They got us some kit. In fact, the supply center was like, hey, we're going to go down to the store. We've got the authorization. You're just going to buy a bunch of kit, because obviously everybody's going. Yeah. Got everything set up. Some good people that were back on the B team got set up with magazines and everything we needed. And then, got on a bird, flew to Afghanistan, linked up with the first team.
So, okay.
And this was in 2002? Early 2002? Late 2001?
Late 2003 or early 2004 for that first trip.
Okay. Where did you go exactly?
So it was A Camp Lane. It was in Day Afghanistan. It was up at the Arghandab River, kind of a little bit north of Kalat, if you know where Kalat is, kind of like right in the center. It's like out in the middle of nowhere. It's a brand new fire base. It's a cool experience because I remember like I'm all kitted out, feeling cool, feeling awesome, my cool, stuff we just bought. I'm on this Chinook, like I'm all kitted up, like I'm about to get out in this firefight, and the helicopter comes in, all the dust, and I've never been out in anything like this
Moon
before,
dust.
right? And the ramp drops, and they got a bunch of supplies and other people getting off, and and it's like 5 fairly jacked guys, very tan, no shirts, ranger panties with beards and goggles on, no helmet, on 4-wheelers. I'm like, oh, this is not what I expected. And you can see the gun trucks like out in the periphery, like pulling security, right? They're like, hey, welcome to A Camp Lane. Put your stuff over here. Let's go. And then A Camp Lane, like there was no showers or anything there. Like when we wanted to wash, you had to go down to the river and pull security and take a bath and be careful, because our Afghan Army, they like to shave their private parts down there, and then they just leave the razors in the river, and then
As one does.
People would cut their feet, and then there was like it's a strangely large amount of freshwater crabs in that river, so they'd bite your toes. So you had to like wear sandals, but you get down there and you wash and change out with the guys pulling security, and then go back to the fire base. So, but that was a super cool trip. I mean, I got my ass chewed a lot, did some stupid stuff, learned a lot.
So you're the junior Bravo on the
junior
team,
Bravo, right? And then my senior Bravo at the time, a guy named Al Passmore, he's like a legend in third group, awesome guy. I remember he got shot through the legs a couple years before he retired, and he's all crying one day on bed. He's like, I'll never be able to walk again. And like a month and a half later, he's like running like 5 miles, like just crushing it. But like me and him, like just butted heads that first trip. Like for some reason, we don't even know why. We talk about it and joke about it to this day. Like we don't have no idea why we hated each other. Become like great friends after that, right? And then we worked together like great after that.
It's funny how that works, right?
Right. Egos, plus me being an idiot, showing up a little bit too much of an ego. Well, I wouldn't say an ego. Ego's important. A little bit too much hubris, I guess. Making some stupid decisions, but that was quickly taken out of me, I would say.
You were the Bravo on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So just real quick, explain to the audience what that is and what your role in the team is.
So a Bravo on a team is you're just like the least intelligent person, and you know how to use a rubber hammer, a mallet, and a screwdriver really well, and but that is true. Anyway,
God bless you.
You have 2 of each MOS on a special forces team. So you have 2 weapons sergeants, right? You have 2 engineers. You have 2 medics. You have 2 commo personnel. Sometimes you have a warrant. You have a commander, and you have an enlisted team sergeant. So the Bravos, when you go to the Bravo course, I thought it was amazing because you literally get to learn how to use every weapon in the world. Just every weapon there's in the world, you learn how to take it apart, put it back together. The functionality, not just functionality, but like how does it fire? Like how far does it fire? Like how do you do all these things? You're sitting there with, surface to air missiles, like locking on the planes coming out. Like they're obviously not real warheads, but learning how to use all those and anti-tank weapons and mortars and like plotting boards, as well as mortar ballistic computers. And you're really responsible for the heavy weapons and the maintenance and the training on the team for all of that. On a team, it's not, you have your specialty, but your job is to cross train everybody else, right? So everybody's a core combat soldier, and then your job is to really make sure everybody knows that. So the medic's job is to ensure that I am also a trauma medic. It's not just the medics that can do medicine. It's like they're the SMEs, but as a Bravo, I'm responsible for making sure everything's maintained, but also making sure everybody knows how they're supposed to fix their own things and do their own whatchamacallits. And then you're like a lot of times like the Bravos are responsible for creating the training plans for your ranges for your indigenous forces and whatnot. Just because you got to divvy up the responsibility, right? And that was it. And then my jobs when I first got like, hey, your job is to make sure these trucks are always immaculate. So that was my job between every mission, pull everything out, clean it, make sure everything's good and whatnot, make sure all the weapon systems are up.
I mean, ultimately, Green Berets, they're trainers. That's their job, is to train either indigenous forces or other American soldiers on how to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like we say that. I think it's more than that. I think it's kind of watering down. Our job is to be we're like the budget SOCOM option for special operations, which we should embrace, right? Because you do have special mission units, you do have like range regiment that can do all this hard hitting stuff. Where if you need Americans to go do something, you need something done in a country, you can send a low American footprint with us, and it's going to be lower cost, and it's going to be longer duration, and we can accomplish something with mostly indigenous means, and forces and ways, right? Like it's not we're linking up with something to solve a problem, but we're doing it through the entity. And a lot of times, are you on the battlefield like with them? Yeah, I've got 3 Purple Hearts, obviously, because I was on the battlefield in close combat with people. But you're doing it. It's not so much as just training, because sometimes you're working with the leaders. Sometimes you're working with other entities, but you're taking something that America wants to do, and you're giving almost no resources to do it, and you got to figure out how to make this happen through that country or that force, or if it's an unconventional warfare environment, like through some kind of guerrilla force. You're just doing the thing at low cost. It's like dirty deeds done dirt cheap. I'll give the pirate analogy real quick if you want me to.
Of course.
So I always give this analogy, like we're like the pirates of the Caribbean when it comes to soft. Like we're out there, you got this nasty pirate ship. It's not the nicest thing, right? It's not the top of the line ship. It's a little banged up, and it's 12 Americans, and you got a crew of 120 people that probably don't shower every day, don't speak English, don't have your same culture. They don't understand the concept of toilet paper, right? But you're on this boat with them, and you get this voyage you got to do. You got to go in and do something. It's gonna be very long. So you're out there sailing. You look over to your left, and it's this nice, sleek destroyer, like this expensive, nice destroyer coming by, and there's like just tan jack dudes on the top, and they're giving you the middle finger as they're going by, like woo, and that's your SMUs, right? They're going to go in, they're going to hit what they got to hit. It's going to be very good. It's going to be well done, very surgical, and they're going to come back out, and they're going to be flicking you off on the way back, and they're going to go back and reset and do it again, right? Very good at what they do, very precise,
direct action,
very expensive, right? We're still sailing there. Look over to the right, and you see this battleship, a lot of firepower, and it's even more. It's like younger jack dudes flipping you off going in. That's your Rangers, right? They're going to go in. That's the ultimate, hard hitting raid force, or just hard hitting. Like if you want to go and take an airfield, or you want to take anything really. Yeah. That's the force of choice in the world. Then they are better than that than anybody else, and they're going to go in and they're going to just crush whatever they've been asked to crush, and they're going to come back, flipping us off on the way back and still going this. So we're going to be out there for a much longer time. It's not going to be as pretty or as sexy, and we're going to go in there and we're going to do this thing, and that's how it is on the pirate ship, and it's just kind of, it's not.
It works.
Yeah, it's not the sexiest option, but I think it's sexy because, I think poor people are often the most resourceful people out there, and that's kind of what we're asked to do is like, hey, go do this impossible thing I'm asking you to do, and also I'm not going to give you that. I'm not going to give you anything that you need to do it.
Can I have some more guidance?
Yeah.
Doing more with less.
Doing more with less. Like the whole thing with Green Berets, like you parachute these people in with absolutely no clothes on and nothing. Maybe wearing boots because walking on gravel barefoot sucks, and then they're going to go figure it out, right?
But it's important.
Yeah,
because it's the stuff. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap.
And it's important. Even like right now, post GWOT, we're more deployed than we were during the GWOT. We don't physically have enough Green Berets to actually do all the missions that are going on in the world right now. And yeah, it's not all like direct action combat stuff, but that's not it's not our bread and butter. It's like a very small amount of what it is that we're supposed to be doing and that we do. Okay. Yeah. Doo-doo? Can you say no? Doo-doo just sounds like you're pooping. Yeah.
A lot of
anyway,
that too.
What I mean.
There's a lot of that too, though.
So going back to Afghanistan in 2003, how long was that tour for you?
I think that was like 7 months. About a 7-month tour. Yeah.
Are you
7, 8 months.
You said it was towards the end of 2003, so Iraq has already kicked off.
No, it was, it had to have been in 2004, I think, because it was kind of hot outside. So, because we went to Iraq right after that.
Yeah.
But because we came back from that trip and we weren't home for very long. We were in Yemen, and then we got pulled out of Yemen because it was getting crazy, and it was like a couple weeks after Yemen that we were in Iraq. That was a wild op tempo time back then. You weren't home for very long.
Were you in Kalat the whole time you were in Afghanistan?
What's that?
Were you in the same place at the same fob during that 7 months?
No, so we were actually north of Kalat. We were like a couple hours north of Kalat, in out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, that trip I was there the whole time. I did some AST duties, which is, somebody's got to go back and kind of be the person that you facilitate a bunch of different teams, and then on the battalion floor, their little jock. So I did that for like, I don't know, 20 days or something like that, and then back out to the fire base.
A lot of people don't realize how long we've been out of Yemen as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's been a while, but yeah, we used to have a pretty decent presence there. Yeah. And that place is crazy. Like you got it. The capital city was pretty secure. Anything outside of that was the Wild West. The partner force,
the Wild West.
Yeah, like the partner force we were working with, like they never went out and didn't come back without casualties.
What were you doing there?
Working with one of their counterterrorism forces to, ensure that what happened or what ended up happening in Yemen didn't happen. Obviously, we weren't successful at that, but yeah, it got pretty crazy where people were like really focused on the embassy and trying to come after us. So we ended up moving safe houses and then ended up just pulling security on the embassy for a full 4 days. I was living up in this little AC room up at the embassy just with a sniper rifle that we were watching. And then it was 2 days after we left Yemen that they actually attacked the embassy with, I think, a suicide bomber and some direct fire stuff. So I don't know if they were waiting for us to leave or it just happened that the timing was right. But yeah, it was right after we left.
So you go back to Bragg and then do a turn and burn and go to Iraq.
And just when you're back, you're not really back. So in that turn and burn time, we came back. We went to a shooting school for like 2 weeks in a different state. Did a bunch of other stuff, and then packed up in Yemen. Came back. We'd packed. When we went to Yemen, we were like, okay, it's a potential that we're going to go somewhere. So we'd already packed for that contingency, so it wasn't that hard. And then we were in Iraq, and we were there for about 8 months.
You were married in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Were you still married at this point?
I don't know. I had to think about that. It's probably too much mental power for me we'd be sitting here for a minute. I have to piece that timeline together. There's certain parts of my life that are just kind of, there's gaps in there because of brain damage, really.
Understandable. Understandable.
ODAs generally will remain intact to the best of the ability, because we want our Green Berets to work together as long as possible. Obviously, the officers usually will come do their stint, do whatever they got to do, and move on. From the time you left to Afghanistan, go through Yemen, and go back to Iraq, how many members of your ODA had swapped out at this point?
So it's a weird question, because in the Afghan trip, the first one, we weren't organic to the ODA we were a part of, because they didn't have enough. Like back then, teams had like 7 people.
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
There was no teams that were full. You barely ever saw a warrant officer. So the team I was actually assigned to on paper, they'd broken it apart, and I think 4 of us from that team were on another team, the Halo team at the time, and that's the fire base we're at.
Okay.
So when we came back from that trip, that team stayed together. Like, it wasn't a whole lot of turnover back then. I mean, you'd spend, I was on that team, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was on that team for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
Is that pretty much just because of the lack of personnel?
Yeah,
the
SWIC tours back then weren't. It wasn't like it is now. The SWIC tour for is the Special Warfare Center schools where we train everybody. Now at about 3 years on a team, you are at risk of going there. Back then, I think it was like 5 years before you were, you were looked at to go back to the schoolhouse. So that, and just you're just there for a while. It's pretty cool. People get promoted out, obviously, and they'll go someplace, or they'll get out of the military.
Yeah.
But generally, if you're going to leave a team, that means you're going to go to the Special Warfare Center school, or you're going to go to a specialty team, or you got fired. Really, that's your options. But if you want to stay there and you're a performer, and you're not going to the Special Warfare Center, you can stay on the same team for forever.
So when you go to Iraq, you're still the junior Bravo on the team.
I was still the junior Bravo. Yep, same guy. Al Passmore again. At this point in time, we were like actually, really,
gelling at the
yeah, we were gelling.
Along.
Went to Iraq, and we went to a place called Tal Afar,
which
was wild. That was, to this day, that's probably the wildest, most intense combat I've ever, just madness, just straight up madness that I've ever seen. I mean, we got there, we were laughing, like, hey, we're working with the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, so they're telling us that we have to ride in the Bradleys and stuff to get to a place. We're like, no, that's dumb. But then after about three weeks, and we're seeing how many people they were losing, and they were just chewing up all the Bradleys and stuff. And they were right. When you're out there in soft skin vehicles in the city, it's just chumming the waters, right? So I was like, okay, we're gonna ride in Bradleys, and they gave us a 113. That was it was a piece of crap. I mean, it broke down in our first mission. Luckily, we had a really good mechanic with us that fixed it. But I remember on our right seat ride mission there, we came out, and they were surrounding this one district in Tal Afar, the Sarai district. And it was just a right seat ride mission right now. And the ramps opened up, and it was, I don't know, I think they had like 8 Bradleys and like 6 tanks, and all the Apaches and Kiowas overhead. Like, the enemy did not care, right? They were like, we are here to fight. The ramps came down. It was a bunch of machine gun fire. The Lieutenant Colonel, a couple tracks down, just disintegrated. And we ended up in this first house that was not part of the plan, right, with a bunch of Iraqi soldiers. I remember, I'm like, man, this is wild. They're shooting at the aircraft. Like, these people legitimately don't care. The Bradleys are shooting. And I'm following these Iraqis, and we go into this kitchen. And I look over this one Iraqi, and he's got a machine gun. He's clearing with this machine gun, but he's got the rounds coming out of the machine gun, and they're wrapped around his neck. So I'm like thinking about it in my head. I'm like, man, if he starts, I kind of want to see what happens if he pulls the trigger.
Just out of morbid curiosity.
Right, but I was like, it's just going to jam the weapon up. I was like, this didn't.
It's the Rambo curse.
It's like, what? So we get in this kitchen, and there's a courtyard. I can see like the doors open. There's a courtyard. There's a couple of the rooms. And nobody's locking down any doors. I'm like, this is kind of weird. And this one Iraqi, he was locking down, or he was looking like he was about to lock down the courtyard, but instead of doing that, he walked over and handed his weapon to his buddy, opened the fridge, and started drinking a thing of milk. And I'm like, man, we're just all gonna die here. This is
it's very surreal.
You're right. This is some wild stuff.
I can't believe this is happening.
So like me and like the medic were like, all right, hey, we got to finish clearing. Like, go up to the roof. We got up to the roof, and we were like, trying to figure out where we were. And that was. Yeah, that right seat ride mission was crazy. I was like, okay, this is what we're in for, I guess, for the right seat ride mission. If people don't know that, it's just like when you show up and you're learning the ropes.
That's the appetizer, yeah.
And there was no actually team to do a right seat ride mission. It was just the ACR trying to show us like, hey guys, welcome to the party.
Yeah,
this is what you're in for. And
this is in 05? 04?
Yeah, it was 05. Yeah.
05, okay. So by that point, the insurgency was kind of in full swing
Oh yeah,
in Iraq.
Yeah,
Because it took a while, but
oh yeah,
yeah.
And Tal Afar was kind of like one of the main hubs for Al Qaeda and other people. That way, we ended up just destroying the city and grabbing them out, and then that was like they were pretty upset about that, and they like, okay, we're going to retaliate and do all these things because we lost Tal Afar.
Yeah. So I was in Afghanistan in 2005, and we started getting the reports about Iraq going sideways, and so they started to pull some of our assets out of theater to go support Iraq, which is a whole other thing. We got our warning order I was in the 82nd. We got our warning order to deploy to Iraq while I was in Afghanistan too. So good times.
Nice.
How long was that tour, and how long? Because when you showed up, it was chaos.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take for either the chaos to settle down or for you to adjust to the madness?
Tal Afar, it settled down after we destroyed the city, but leading up to that, I think we had 5 ODAs there and other people, and it was an interesting trip. I was tell people, like, if I'm as a sergeant major, if I'm yelling at somebody, like I'm yelling at you, I'm telling you to do this thing, knowing that I'm a hypocrite, right? Because if you're not being a hypocrite in life, you're probably not doing it right. You should always look back at learn from these things. But I was the guy putting peroxide in my hair so it was blonde, and I remember we were building these shoot houses for the Iraqis we were working with, and I made some friends with, that's what you do, you make friends, like with the people that owned all the forklifts and the trucks and all the Hescos and stuff. But what we were doing is that we were actually stealing their Hescos unbeknownst to them with a flatbed we'd stole and their forklift, and we'd go and we built this whole shoot house in this facility. And then when we got done building it, we had like 60 Hescos left of the ones we stole, brought them back, convinced the S4 that these were some extras that we had found, and we were doing them a favor by just giving them the extras that we had found, even though we'd stolen from them.
That's right, nice of you.
And they were like, "Oh man, if you guys need anything at all, like just let us know." And it was like a week later, like the actual ACR sergeant major would come down and yell at our company. Someone was like, "Hey, who's the guy like with the blonde mohawk, just having his head out the window type of thing?" And the other guy's got his flip flops out the window. We can't be doing that kind of stuff. So
good times.
Yeah, it was good. And then KBR built us a sweet swimming pool over there. They had like this brine pond for the water, but they burned off and made like a beach and put this floating platform out there. So we'd come back from a mission and drive the tractor after that and just jump in the water. And when the helicopters would fly over, we'd make sure, we were like face down with our butts out and everything. So that was.
And there were no razor blades in this water.
No razor blades in this water. But there's like these weird bugs in there that would get on you, and they're like some out of a horror movie. So I stopped actually going in the water after a while, because after I saw a couple of those, I don't know what those are.
They look like from the movie Aliens.
Yeah. And I had some flashbacks to when I was a kid. I used to watch Creepshow all the time.
Oh,
I'm like,
good
I
stuff.
don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to be. I had this vision, like I'm going to be on this platform and just stuck out there, right? Like, and I can't. If I get in the water, I die. I'm like, okay, but I'm going to go out here and tan. I'd still jump in the water after a mission for a minute, but I wouldn't go back out to the platform because I was like, that's just weird to me. Everybody else would go out there. I was like, nah, it's going to serve its purpose. But back to your question about the chaos. So our team, like every team had a different sector of the city. Our team had what was known as a castle. It was the highest point. It was like an old castle, like built way back when. And at the time, I hadn't actually been to an official sniper school, but I was now a sniper on the team because, how we had. I'd gone to the very first, what we call SODIC level 2. That didn't exist at the time, but our company sergeant major, he'd been an instructor out at the sniper school, so he taught a 2-week course there where I kind of went on the ropes, and then, we'd go up to these spots. I remember my very first, attempted sniper shot was with a Barrett 50 cal. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I forgot to check the back pin. So it was like a 100-meter shot, maybe not even 100 meters. It was this guy just had a PKM out there. I talked to the cops. They're like, "Hey, that's not one of our guys." And we'd already told everybody, like, don't be walking around like that. So talking to the guys on the top, they're like, "Hey, it's clear they had a camera on them." And I was like, "All right." And I pulled the trigger, and the weapon came apart. And the guy was spotting for me. He's like, "Holy crap, you missed that by a lot." I was like, "Hey, look at the gun." And then the guy in the talk's like, "How did you miss that shot?" Right? I look like a complete idiot. So learn the hard way, like check your pins. Make sure even if somebody puts together your stuff, you check everything. It's on you to make sure your stuff is good. But I mean, we'd go up there at an M24 at the time, and we'd go up there with a lot of ammo. We'd come back every time without ammo. And eventually they started smartening up, and they weren't like doing stuff. I remember the first time I actually shot somebody with a sniper rifle. It wasn't like anything crazy, like 450 meters maybe. I don't know, somewhere in there, nothing crazy, but there's a cemetery, and there's all these armed guys in there. So I ended up pinging this guy, and 450-meter shot, whatever. But it was like one of the first kills from the castle. When I got back, by the time we got back to the chow hall, everybody's like, "Man, I heard you got a guy at 1,200 meters and heavy wind." And I'm like,
We'll just go with that. Yes.
yeah, I was like,
Yes, it was, and I did it with both eyes closed,
Right, yeah.
and my firing hand tied behind my back, and pull it with my nose, and
yeah, and I wouldn't
the
even
legend
It
grows.
was crazy. Nobody knew I wasn't even a qualified sniper, so I was like, "Oh, okay," felt pretty cool. So, yeah, it was just wild. I remember we set up this gunfire detection system that we'd brought with us to Iraq. It had like acoustic arrays and it had a camera, so it was made like for sniper shots or whatever. It slew and give you distance and direction. The first night we set it up at the castle, though, we took like 10,000 rounds. So it was like all from different directions. I'm like,
What do I do with all this?
so we're like, okay, that's not going to work. But that's how wild it was.
Yeah.
I remember we were up on a point on the side of the castle one night. It was like me and two other people, and we got to the roof. That's where the Iraqis were pooping. So there was just turds everywhere, right? We're like, well, we got to sleep up here. We brought some cots up there. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sleep over here on top of the poop because that's where the cover is. And the way the one guy's like, well, I'm not going to sleep on top of poop. I'm going to sleep over here, which was out in the open, right? Like, so there's no cover. So sure enough, like 1 o'clock in the morning, all this machine gun fire starts coming in. It's like going right over him. I'm good because I'm behind the wall. So I just I had to clean some of the poop away and got my stuff ready. Well, he's like freaking out because he's got to roll out of the bed. So he's got to crawl through a bunch of the poop. And then he gets all the way over to me. He's like, oh, shit, I didn't grab my gun. So then he's going to crawl back.
Oh, man. It's like Shawshank. Oh, man.
And then I get down trying to figure out why the Iraqis aren't firing back. And we get down there and like they got the machine gun loaded backwards and all kinds of other crazy stuff is going on.
Man, yes.
So
of course.
It was some wild times. But then we got to a point to where H.R. McMaster's was like, okay, I'm tired of it. And then the ACR lost a ton of people. There's like 50 people that trip. They weren't playing around. So McMaster's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build a berm around the city, which he did. And we're going to give them like 7 days to get out. And if you want to stay, that means you want to fight. And we brought in a bunch of Kurds from the north.
They don't play around.
They don't play around with a couple of teams. First group teams, actually. I think 2 first group teams came down. And we started from the south, and we just cleared south and north. We'd come up, we'd drop a wall with a tank and hit the Bradleys, and then we'd go in, and we just did that until, at one point we stood up on this point called Route Barracuda, and that's kind of where the Stride District was, where we were in the first place, and we just leveled that place with AC-130 and Apaches. It was like 24 hours of just constant firing, where you were sleeping on the roof at night. You had to put the Haji blankets over your face so the rounds from the Apaches wouldn't hit you in the face and mess you up. Type of thing. That's just how constant it was, and you just learn to sleep through it. And we cleared the city. And after that, the chaos ended, and everything was good. The 82nd came in too at that point in time. Mm-hmm. We had some elections, and it wasn't not a whole lot happened. There was some IEDs and whatnot, or VBEDs that happened after that. But I don't think the ACR lost any more people after that, and I don't think there was any more crazy firefights.
The direct action was
because we killed everybody, so that was there. So that stayed and wanted to fight.
You were in Iraq when they found Saddam?
Man, I don't know.
That timing sounds close.
I think it was close. I don't think I was there when they found Saddam, but I also don't remember.
Okay.
It's one of those things I have to think about and put some see, all these questions like, man, where was I? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We ask the hard-hitting stuff.
Yes, man.
So how long was that tour?
That was like 8-9 months. That was a little bit longer.
That's a long one. Yeah.
So now you are getting close to 7, 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think I'd made E7 right before that trip. Had I? No, I made E7 right after that trip. So I made 7 and 7. So it was right at 7 years.
Yeah. So that is, that's getting pretty close to the halfway mark, and the halfway mark is the big decision point.
Yeah, I re-enlisted in Iraq.
Yeah. Did you know, like, this is it? Like,
yeah,
I'm going to be doing this for 20 years.
Oh yeah, to me I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, people get paid to do this kind of stuff, like do all these cool schools, and it's like, this is unbelievable. This sounds like too good to be true. I'm in. Let's do it.
So for your second re-enlistment, what did you re-up for?
Man, I don't remember. I think that was...
Was that the era of big bonuses?
It was okay. I remember that bonus wasn't too crazy. I think I remember being disappointed in it a little bit, so that's what it was. But I think I signed up for 4 years on that one, the next one.
Did you do it while you were deployed? So
Yeah, yes, it was tax-free, so it was good.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. I think all of my reenlistments were tax-free. After the initial one, After that, it was all deployed. Because I took the Devil's money, too, as an E9, where it's like a sweet $100,000 for giving the Army 4 more years, which is like, you really only give them 2 more years, because it's like you do it at like 18 and a half years, and then, you really give them until 2022. So it's like, that also seemed like, I was like, yeah, don't threaten me with a good time.
That's right. Okay, let's go ahead and take a break.
All right. Iraq, 2005. You've leveled the town, cleared it out. All is right in the world. Now where?
Well, now I'm enjoying a nice RC Cola that I didn't know existed. Anyway.
We'll mail the checks to our P.O. Box, please. Thank you. Brought to you by...
But for real, I didn't know this existed anymore, but it exists, and it's in the refrigerator.
It's like a time capsule here at Dan's house, yes.
And it's delicious. Anyway, so Iraq, leveled the city. We were there for another 1 or 2 months, I think, and then we held an election, and then we came back. What happened between? So let me think about this for a second. Okay, we came back. We got designated as before that we got designated as one of the first. No, it was nothing. We got designated as one of the first mountain teams. Every battalion had a designated mountain team, and we had to go to the USUC mountain course, which at the time was like forever long. It was like 3 or 4 months long.
Where is that?
That was in Colorado.
Okay.
So we went as a team, like every battalion had to send a team, and we went and did the USUC mountaineering course together. But it wasn't just in Colorado; it was also in Alaska, because you went and did your ice climbing.
Yeah, there was one in New Hampshire.
I think that's still there.
There's
so now
one in Vermont,
it's the Army National Guard.
Yeah, so now they've broken. Now it's different, right? Like now it's like in smaller blocks. But that was like the first test bed. They brought all these instructors in to do it. And I'm deathly afraid of heights to this day, so I've done a lot of lying to God on the side of a mountain. Like, just let me survive. I'm like,
start bargaining.
I'll do this, and of course
I'll be a better man.
Yeah. So we went to the USAC mountain course, and when we came out of that, the battalion already deployed to Afghanistan. So we were about 3-4 weeks late to the trip. So we went right back to Afghanistan and didn't do anything mountaineering wise, obviously, because that's the way we do it. And
Obviously.
Then, and went on our next deployment to Afghanistan.
So that's OEF 8?
Man, I don't even know at
Okay.
this point.
Yeah.
I stopped trying to keep track of
Yeah,
that. Like,
fair enough.
I was like, I don't know.
So-
Just send me somewhere.
Yeah.
So where are you this time?
So we were in Ghazni, Afghanistan.
So you're in the east.
Yeah, so that was interesting, because now we were up in Bagram coming down, and we got ambushed a couple times on the way to fire base. That was an interesting experience. And I remember we came through our second ambush, and we stopped at this gas station, and it was almost like they knew it had happened, because they're like, "Welcome to Ghazni." I'm like, it sounds like some out of a movie or something, right? The old guy comes out, like, look at the box trucks, like seeing what was shot up and whatnot. Luckily, there was a couple like nicks in our Humvees, but like they weren't very good marksmen, so they missed for the most part.
Now, at this point, Bagram and Kandahar had exploded into these massive bases.
Bagram had become Baragram.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
So
pretty big.
when you were there in Bagram, were there already people walking around with the shirts saying, "I know I'm going to heaven because I've been to hell, Bagram, Afghanistan"?
I don't know, but it was definitely like if you left the wire, or you left the little front gate without a PT belt and some eyeglasses and a hat, you better expect to be yelled at by a sergeant major. Like, "What are you doing, man? This is how we're losing the war. You're not wearing your eye pro." Like,
Yep.
Right.
That's it.
Right, and then they shut down Disney. So like, even if you had to go out on a mission, like man, I'm going on this combat op at 6:30 in the morning, like, it's PT hours. You can't drive on Disney. Like, well, how do we go out and do the thing we're supposed to do? Like, we got to wait an hour. Like, all right, sounds amazing. Like, come on.
Yeah, it got ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I say that, obviously, as a sergeant major myself, I got my nice PT belt because I believe in the safety. Like, PT belts will solve all your problems. Marriage, whatever. Just put on a PT belt.
Dan, he also commented on the grass in your front yard as he was walking up.
Yeah. It's like, Actually, in my office upstairs in my house, I've put out fake turf, so I just sit there like just incredibly pissed all the time, like, oh, what am I doing?
And you have a beard, so you don't have to worry about sideburns.
I yell at myself, but I'm like, what are you doing? You're on terminal leave, but you're still in the Army. You shouldn't be doing that. But I use all that rage to like help me. Like,
He rage types.
Yeah, rage type. Like, let's use it's good.
So what was the mission?
So
for this tour.
So this was a really cool tour that I'm proud of what we did, because it wasn't like this kinetic combat mission. In fact, the tours that I'm most like really proud of are the ones that weren't just all like kinetic, because you get to build things. Like that particular one, we didn't have a job. They're like, hey, you can't leave your firebase without a partner force. Like, okay, well, where do we get a partner force? Like, I don't know, it's up to you to figure it out. We're like, okay, well, there's this other unit up here, this Afghan army unit, and there's some cops about a mile away. They're like, okay. But in order to get there, you got to have a partner force to leave the wire and go there. It's like, well, we don't have a partner force. There's nobody here. Like, well, yeah. So
we can't get a partner force.
So you got to find one. We're like, well, we got to go here to find them. Like, okay, but if you're going to go there, you got to have a partner force with you. It's like,
I'm saying,
what?
I'm picking up what you're putting.
Catch-22.
Right. Anyway, we end up meeting them and meeting the local police force. Like, all right, well, what the governor and everybody's asking for is like they want some kind of police capability here where they can actually start making a difference. So we pitched that we were going to stand up this special response team. And, I know there's a lot of controversy with USAID, but got with the USAID reps there. And I was like, hey, and at the time I'm newly promoted E7, but they let me run with building this program, the medic. And I think that's pretty cool, right? And where else can you have two junior people to like, hey, come up with a concept for this? And we're like, okay, well, in order to recruit these people from our research, from talking to the civil affairs team that was there, is we need to basically teach these people to read and write, because that's what they want. So we're going to pitch, like, come to this program, and we will bring in an instructor to teach you to read and write and all this other stuff. And that got everybody in the door, and then the USAID paid for the instructors to come every day to teach these people to read and write. And I was like, that was our pitch, like, come be part of this unit, and this is what you get. And everybody's like, wow, that's cool. So we got like 30 people for the strike team. We built a compound for them. We trained them up, and they call them the Ghazni SRT. They're the Dirty 30. And it endured. This unit was so successful, they ended up shutting it down in like 2011 because they were Hazaras, and they were just like, at the time, they was like, okay, we come across the top and we're just killing them. They're like, hey, this is getting to the point. This is like starting to be war crimes, so we got to disband this unit. But I remember running into them and an ODA that was partnered with them in 2010, years later, and they're like, hey, Mr. Chuck, remember us? I was like, oh, man,
Mr. Chuck.
It's you guys. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, oh, man, we're doing these targets over here with this team. I was like, that was cool to build something that endured, and it got shut down by, it would not because they weren't doing their job, probably because
they were doing it too well.
They were doing it, too well. So, and they didn't even prove they were committing war crimes. They're just like, hey, it's weird they go in here and it's always everybody's dead. They got weapons and stuff, but still, like.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when there's smoke, there really is fire.
So I was like,
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, and then so that was that trip was really going out with those people, and like I don't think we got anything other than getting ambushed. Yeah, we weren't out there like really ever getting in firefights
on offensive operations.
Yeah, we'd send them out, and that was cool to build something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so how long was that?
That was about 6 months.
Okay,
yeah.
How long did building that Dirty 30 take? Not necessarily the organization of it or the concept of it, but actually getting them to where they were a team and they could function if left to their own devices.
It took about a month to plan it all out, right? And to get all the resources and all that front side stuff that nobody likes to do, and like building the compound and getting the money for that, and that's where we went through like the civil affairs. What was it called at the time? The CMOC that was there. Mm-hmm. And that's before there was special operations. They had the CMOC with the USAID, got them to give up a substantial amount of money for the building of all these things and everything. And then making, that is with monies and making sure everything's legal. And then, recruiting took about a month, and then it took about 3 to 4 months to. So it almost took the entire trip to get them to where they're operational. And so we were really like at the last month we were there is when they were actually going out doing some things.
Is this being done through a provincial reconstruction team?
Some of it, yeah. Some of the funding, right? Because we had op fund and other sources, but obviously legally you can't spend it on certain things. But since the construction and everything else, we could bin it with that's how it panned out and it worked. So, and like all the firewood and everything. It was like freezing. It was in the middle of the wintertime. I remember coming out of my chew sometimes, and it would be so cold. So like negative, like 10 degrees. Your nostrils would freeze up right away. And that was an interesting trip too, because somehow my chew had an electrical short on the outside. So everybody else's chew was just snow covered and iced. Well, mine was always melting. It was always like a river. Like, man, that's kind of weird. And sometimes my door would open, and when it hit the metal, sparks would fly everywhere. And then one day the dog handler had his dog on my front porch, and it jumped away like screaming. I'm like, that's weird. So let me go here barefoot. And sure enough, shocked the crap out of me. So I'm like, man, something's wrong. So then they went in there like, oh yeah, you got all these electrical shorts in here. Like, it's amazing you're still alive. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, building codes in Afghanistan are yeah. Chuck cheated death once again.
Oh, let me tell you this story. So we had this guy there, and this is actually a shout out because I love this guy's name. His name is Boogie Brown, right? He was my junior Bravo at the time. I was a senior Bravo. So Boogie was a character, and this guy is a straight up warrior. So I don't want anybody to take this story as me degrading. I mean, he'll listen to this and find this funny. But so he was the junior Bravo. He was in charge of our weapons connex, right? So come in there one day, and he's got this. We used to have these old these things on wheels that was our weapons, like a little safe. It was basically a portable safe you could put all your weapons in, weapons coffin. He had this list of like all these like sensitive items and stuff on there. I'm like, oh, it's squared away, Biggie, because we're doing this inventory. You've got a list of everything that's in there. He's like, nah, man, that's not what's in there. That's everything that's not in there. I was like, what sense does that make? He's like, I don't know. It just seemed like the thing to do. It's like, okay. So we kept the keys. We kept one of the sets of keys in the ops end. So I go in there, and well, let me back up a little bit. Before this trip, our engineer had got all the same key, like all the locks are the same key. So before that, we had like 24 keys for 24 different locks. Now we had one key for 24, whatever, right? I had to go to a school. I think I went to PLDC or something. He went on a training mission, and he called me like the second day there. And he's like, hey, Chuck, can you send me the sensitive items list? I forgot to bring it. And I was like, okay. So I went and faxed it to him. He's like, oh, I just want to let you know, like, I forgot the keys. So I had to cut all the locks. So
of course,
we're going to buy new locks. So then we went back to having 24 keys, right? So anyway, so I walk into this ops end, and I grab the Bravo key ring. I'm looking, I'm like, hey, Boogie, what? There's like 50 keys on here. He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, why are there 50 keys in here? He's like, well, it's all the keys. I'm like, so it's the primary key and the spare key. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, what's the point of having us primary and spare keys? He's like, well, if you lose one, you got a backup. I'm like, okay, so if I lose this,
yeah,
we're screwed.
And it's all on one ring. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you're right, man. We need to fix that. I'm like, all right, check it out. I got this meeting. It's one of the meetings of the USAID, and none of them are labeled either. So you had to like sit there and like figure out what's. I was like, hey, man, let's sit with the label maker. So I sat with him, and I made a label for the lock, and then a label for each key. So I made 3 keys. I was like, all right, Boogie, I'm gonna go to this meeting, take care of this, and we'll be back. So I came back, and the key ring's sitting up on the thing, right, with all the keys still on there. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Look at it. There's no labels. So then I go get Boogie. I'm like, hey, man, like I see, like the labels aren't on the desk anymore. He's like, but the keys are up there, the same configuration. Now when I check the locks, there's no labels on the locks. He's like, yeah. He's like, all right, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Like I have no idea what to do with them labels. I don't know. But I was like, it's like I couldn't find them, so I just stopped what I was doing.
I just quit. Yeah.
All right. Last story, and this is a guy I love too. So it was hard to find a mop bucket, like an actual mop bucket this trip, right? So finally I was so proud because we'd gone to a bazaar. I finally found a mop bucket, like a yellow mop bucket to mop the ops in with.
With the handle and everything.
Everything. Yeah. I was so proud of it. This is like a month or 2 in the trip. And one day I come in for guard duty. I'm going, okay, it's my turn to mop. Can't find a mop bucket. The mop's there. There's no mop bucket. So in the meeting in the morning, like, hey guys, like, there's only us that comes in here. Like, obviously one of us knows where the mop bucket is, right? And everybody's like,
I don't know nothing.
So like a month later, now we're back to like mopping out of a actual like metal bucket, right? And a month later, like I'm like, where's Boogie? We're at the range. I'm like, where's this dude at? But he's sleeping. So I go to his room, and he was actually sick. But so I kick open his door because I'm just trying to be loud and obnoxious. And he gets up, and he's got a tight brown T-shirt and no pants on. And I look over, and there's the mop bucket. And I look in there, and it's all yellow. I'm like, what? why do you have the mop bucket in here? He's like, well, you know how everybody uses pee bottles at night, Chuck? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I just use the mop bucket. I was like, so this whole time, like, yeah, I wanted to tell you, but, you know.
But you'd be mad. I wanted to
See, what had happened was...
I wanted to tell you, but then you'd be mad.
I mean,
God bless America.
I understand. I do.
But we're talking about doing a whole show. Just I want to get Boogie on the show where we tell Boogie stories, and he just like, yeah, they happen.
What say you? Yeah, it definitely happened. I'm happy that I don't ever have to do the pee bottle thing ever again for the rest of my life, though.
No, it's always fascinating to you're like, man, I got all these pee bottles here. It's kind of gross, but all right, I'm gonna throw these away and get some more empties, and we'll be fine.
Yep. Yeah. Those who know.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah. All right, so that tour in Afghanistan ends. You've built up this elite fighting force, the Dirty 30, and they are good to go, and you leave country.
Mm-hmm.
Now what?
Come back, like, man, what did happen to this time? So we didn't have that much time back from this trip either. I don't know. We did some schools. I think we went to. It's one of the times we went to like Griffin Group, did like the offensive and defensive driving. Like you're always doing cool stuff. I was like, isn't it like a rinse and repeat? Like no, it's never rinse and repeat. It's just always awesome. Like you're just always doing cool stuff. Came back to Afghanistan in 2008, and this time we're in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, up at Fob Robinson near the district capital. When if anybody's been there, like that's the Wild West. It was like IED Alley, and we were losing. You know, anytime you left the wire, you're probably gonna like lose somebody. Generally, like your partner force. I mean, even coming in, like you have to bring like these huge convoys of trucks in to resupply the fire base, and we were bringing one up when we were coming to the fire base, and there was no showers there, so we were working with the UAE. Before that trip, we spent 3 months in the UAE working with the UAE Special Operations, which is cool. We're living in Dubai, and then we brought them with us on that trip. Well, one of their sheikhs or whatever donated this awesome shower unit, like I'm talking like gold-plated stuff, like
it's
cool
Dubai,
stuff. Right? Yeah, the Taliban blew that up on the way into the fire base. So we'd also stocked it with all the MREs. So,
it's personal.
Took our shower and our shower.
Yeah, so
it's personal.
We knew that was going to be a good trip coming in there because you could take the road and get hammed up IEDs, but you obviously when you took the desert, you'd still hit just as many IEDs, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It was wild, and then you get attacked at the fire base almost every night. And you know the district center, the Brits were up there, and they were getting attacked all the time.
Were the attacks on your fixed positions? Were those more for harassment, or were they, plotted direct engagements?
No, they did try to overrun that. So they tried to overrun that fire base once because most of the elements there were doing a clearance mission with the Brits in this huge operation to the west. So the enemy's like, oh, well, it seems like the time to take this place. Well, they didn't, you got really good visibility in that place. So the people that were back on the B team just had EC-130 just mop everybody up.
Yeah.
They didn't work out for them very well. But, they were hitting us with like recoilless rifles all the time from, they'd be like a K out just hitting us. I remember it became so commonplace for getting attacked there that me and one of the other Bravos, another great individual named Kern Brown, we were installing Chigos. We didn't have Chigos. We were intense at first. We just built some buildings, and we're installing some Chigos, and we just got one out of the case, and the fire base started getting attacked, right? It was like a bunch of rounds flying overhead and a bunch of explosions, and we're like, all right, that's about normal. We got about 30 minutes before it starts getting like pretty good, before we even need to start getting our kit on. So let's go ahead and finish installing this Chigo, and then we'll put our kit on and go to the wall and deal with the enemy. That's how commonplace it was.
Yeah.
And then, so as we're start taking this Chigo to the thing, all of a sudden a huge round goes over his head, like, well, boom! We're like, that's not normal. It seems like they're firing school buses at us now. So let's go get our kit on, and then we end up having to go out there and like actually go to the site. We hit that site with an MLRS round from another fire base. That was pretty cool to watch. And then we actually went out there and had to deal with that.
During and I mean not specifically for this tour, but during any of your tours, when you guys had your your after action sessions and you talked about what happened, was there ever an instance that sticks out to you like, man, the enemy actually had a pretty good plan here, it just didn't work?
Yeah, that did happen quite a bit. But generally, with our ARs, we just took the SEAL route. We're like, hey, you did good. I did good. You did good. Everybody did good.
Everybody did good.
Nothing to talk about. All right, let's go.
Spike the ball.
Yeah, let's go.
Smoking on the
Right,
objective.
let's go write a book. Anyway, about how good we did. No, I love my SEALs. I'm just
Bless their hearts.
yeah. I think that most people are like, oh man, combat's great. I'm really excited about combat. I've probably never been in a position to where they've been thoroughly outmaneuvered and they're outgunned. Which once you're in that position once or twice, you're like, I mean, I'll do this again. Obviously, it's my job, but I'm not excited about it.
It's not fun anymore.
I agree.
Yeah, so that happens. It's not, and sometimes you get caught with your pants down through no fault of your own. Sometimes you did all the planning, but sometimes, underestimating the enemy is never a good idea. I've personally done that a couple times, and it's never turned out very well.
Yeah, fair.
Okay.
Never. Which we'll get. That's a couple later episodes in my career, but yeah, I feel like a little bit of some hubris it'll definitely come back to haunt you when you think if you try to the enemy's just these, they're
Bunch of
just
ragamuffins.
No, they've been doing that for decades. If you ever read the Malacan Field Force by Churchill, and you compare it with the Outpost story, right? You're like, well, this is just the same story 100 years ago. We're doing the exact same stupid stuff that have the same end state.
There is nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's always interesting to me. Look at history. I'm like, wow, we just really never learned any lesson. That's pretty cool.
Well, part of it, too, is, at this point, what year is it now?
Right now, today?
What?
No.
This deployment.
Oh, this is, I was like, man, we're getting really old if we don't know what year it is right now. All of us. That's 2008.
So we've been in there for a solid 6.5 years, really almost 7. We've already killed all the dumb ones at this point. Mm-hmm. That was kind of always my take.
Everybody that's left is a few new recruits, and the rest are battle hardened.
Yeah. Yeah, and they got you think about it too. Say you're over here and really you don't got the internet and you're just herding goats all day long. You're like, well, you know what? I could sit here and do this. Or I could go shoot at some Americans. I think that's probably more fun, right? There's nothing else going on. What else are you going to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. When you think about it, you're like, yeah, I get it.
Money's better, too.
Money's better,
Got a purpose.
It
makes sense. You don't have to like it, but it makes sense.
And a lot of those people you find, everybody's like, oh, it's ideology. Yeah, there's a lot of that, but most of the people that you come across, they're just trying to survive. It's money, right? Money for their family, money to do whatever. So
right.
Yeah, just making a living. Pulling the trigger against some Americans or putting an ID in.
Now you've talked a lot about in between rotations, in between deployments, you were going to all these different schools. Because I honestly don't know, how often do you have to recertify on some of those schools?
Just depends on what it is. Most of those schools you don't have to recertify on, so to say. I don't know. Probably, when I became an intel sergeant in 18 Fox in 2010. There's some things you have to recertify on there, right? Obviously, but
well, I guess maybe recertify is the wrong word. I guess
re-blue.
Refresh on it.
Oh yeah, you got to re-blue on everything. Everything's perishable. Even wiping your own butt, which I found out after getting shot in the arm after learning how to use my arm. Even wiping your butt's perishable. Everything. So. Everything's perishable in life. Every skill, even speaking, right?
How do you fit that in, given how just given the op tempo of what you were doing? You were deploying, coming back, going to school, deploying, redeploying to another area, coming back, going to another school. How do you work in that refresher training?
Prioritization, but it's impossible. There's no way in any unit really you can be as good at everything that you're supposed to be good on that you're expected to be good on, right? It's an impossibility. So at the time, I'm not sure what the prioritization was because the team started running that. I just showed up for stuff, but it just seemed like you're just treading water. You're just trying to, you're picking, okay, these are the things that are going to keep us alive in combat. So we're going to prioritize those first. And then here's the other things that we actually have to do this trip coming up. Prioritize those next, and this stuff we're willing to cut away.
Yeah. And even in that second category, oftentimes they're still just kind of guessing.
It's you're not going to have time for all of it.
Right.
Time is the biggest enemy.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing in the military, and you're just going to run out of time. Right? There's no way to be No way to be proficient on everything that you are required to be proficient on.
Yeah.
So you're the senior Bravo. You're this is a multiple tours to Afghanistan. Anything else from that tour?
From the '08, yes. So I got, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'd been losing a lot of vehicles, a lot of people.
Okay.
The first mine-resistant vehicles had come in, the RG-33s, I think the 34s, and there was like maybe another version. So our team flew to Kandahar to get the package for our fire base. So we took a week-long class, maybe like a 2-week-long class, and then we're bringing them back to the fire base. Well, me and the medic ended up getting pneumonia, so it delayed it a little bit. But we got the 33s. We were good on them. We were taking just them. So we had 4 RG-33s, nothing else. We weren't taking a convoy back this time. And we were taking them back with like 3 or 4 Humvees. There was a military unit that was going out there with us. And we left Kandahar City, and we're about 20 minutes out from Kandahar City. And the enemy obviously was paying attention to what we were doing. So like, okay, well, these vehicles are pretty substantial. Let's see how much it takes to blow this thing up. So the lead vehicle had a mine roller. It hit something. It blew the mine roller off. Our vehicle hit about 500 pounds of explosive, they estimated, in a culvert. So it threw the RG-33 about 50 meters down the road, and it's landing facing backwards. It killed the JTAC sitting right next to me immediately. It killed the driver immediately. The captain was in the TC seat. It broke his back, like the seat, he was stuck in the seat. It broke his back to where he couldn't ever really use his legs properly. Had to go to the military. And then me and our junior engineer in the back, we got severely injured. In fact, like from here to here, it took over 4 years to rebuild the face and the jaw. I didn't have front teeth for many years until I finished the final surgery, and it crushed my lower body. I had to relearn how to walk. It really screwed up my left leg and my knee because the joystick for where I was gunning, it hit that, and then I broke through the gunner's complex with my face and crushed all my ribs. And it's one of the reasons why the surgeon thinks I had so many hernias down there when they went there a couple weeks ago. Is one of the reasons, right? It's like I'm already prone to them because I got weak genes. And the guy in the very back, he ended up getting chaptered out of the military, not chaptered, but metaboarded out because of psychological issues, because he never actually went and took care of his issues. I spent a significant amount of time trying to take care of my issues, but jacked him up just as bad. So we came out of there, looking pretty gnarly, and that caused a lot of cognitive issues. So went home in the medevac bird, started those surgeries. And then for that trip, that was it. Our team was, we a couple weeks before that, we'd already lost the guy Boogie I was talking about. He had to get medevaced out. I think he got back to the fire base, but our dog handler got killed. And then, we'd taken our 18 Fox had got seriously wounded, so he had to go back. So they had to actually bring people coming to backfill the team because we were just inoperable at that point.
Were these casualties all from IEDs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, all from IEDs. So you take direct fire with some of them, but it wasn't, the main damage was from the IEDs, and there was just tons of them. They were just everywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, you leave theater. I mean, the level of your injuries is...
Yeah.
Severe?
Well, so, of course. So you swing through Longstool, I'm guessing.
Yep, and Longstool. I was frequent flying Longstool. In fact, when I got the third time I came back to Longstool, like the one nurse was like, "Look, I've been here the other 2 times you come back. Like, you got to stop coming back through here. Like, what are you doing?" Like,
frequent flyer.
Yeah, she was like, "Wow, you again?"
Because that's not your first Purple Heart.
That was my first.
That one. Yeah. That one was okay. Yeah. Okay. Walter Reed after that?
No. Came back and recovered, and Womack oral maxillofacial surgery was actually pretty good.
Okay.
Had a bunch of broken ribs and stuff, but that was, I took care of that through the physical therapist. Well, it wasn't the physical. We didn't have physical therapists at the time. It was actually our battalion doc was like a trained chiropractor, so he helped me get all that stuff back.
How long did that recovery take?
That one took 4 years. I didn't finally get front teeth up here until 2012. That was my last surgery, but I snuck into a deployment in 2010, and I had front teeth. And about halfway through the trip, the battalion CSM came. He's like, "Hey, Chuck." He's like, "Come here." He's like, "You know why I know you're not supposed to be here?" And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, 1, you don't have front teeth, so that's a pretty good red flag, right? 2,
dental red."
So I called your surgeon and your psych, and they both said, like, "No, you still got like 4 or 5 more surgeries. There's no way you should have been cleared on any paperwork." So that's how I know you forged some of your paperwork to get in here. He's like, "I'm not going to kick you out of country, but you can't be after we get back. You're not operational. You can't even look at an ODA until you're cleared for duty.
You had said that it took you a while to relearn how to walk
Properly. I mean, still walk,
to walk properly again. How long did that take?
It took a while. That was hard. I remember like being pissed that I couldn't run again, and I finally was like, okay, I can feel good. And this is back before we had the Thor 3 programs, which is like the trainers and psych. So I think if I would have had that, it would have taken less time because I remember I came out of one. I had a bone graft up here, so they cultivated bone from down here, and they were replacing all the bone up here. So I was like sutured up. Plus, I'd taken all 4 wisdom teeth because I took some bone from back here too at the time. And I remember the next day I called my buddy up, who I told you need to have on the show, and I was like, "Hey man, you want to do a 12-mile ruck march with me?" He's like, "That's a good idea." I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm feeling pretty good." Yeah, that wasn't a good idea. In fact, that thing, like one of the screws up there came loose. That's always caused problems from that. But because doing stupid stuff like that probably prolonged my recovery. Could just being an idiot.
Your own worst enemy.
Your own worst enemy. Just ego. Like I gotta get back. I'm gonna just prove like I'm on some kind of like this awesome green beret. Like nobody cares, man. Like stop. Like it's ridiculous.
But that's where that warrior ethos and that tenacity starts to work against us, right?
Yeah.
Because fast forward, like when I got wounded in 2013, man, that's probably a little bit more critical too when you look at it. But I was able to in 2 months I was back in combat because I had everybody meet me in the hospital, like all the Thor 3 staff. We came with a plan, and then the next Monday I was in there training. So yeah, it took far longer than it should have, mainly because I was just being an idiot and I didn't have any like the checks and balances that we finally put in place.
Yeah.
And then obviously I probably shouldn't have snuck in. I probably would have been, if I hadn't snuck into a deployment and actually finished up my surgeries, I probably could have, there's plenty of things that I could have done better, for my own
hindsight is always
for my own health and sanity, right?
You're not our first guest who found their way back onto a deployment that they had no business really going on.
Right. It's like one of those things you're always like, man, I got to get out. I got to get back there.
Another third group person, by the way.
Well, and it's you want to be with your guys, and you feel like you're not carrying your load if you're not there, and it's hard to put yourself out of that situation, when you're so focused on the team, and the mission. It's hard to, man, I got to take care of myself so that I can be there 100% for the team.
Yeah.
Like,
later in life, I've learned that no, you should be selfish. Like it's usually a pejorative, but the reality is if you're not being selfish and taking care of yourself, then how can you actually be selfless and take care of others? Right.
Right.
You got to be more valuable so you can actually take that and help other people.
Exactly. If you're not in a place to help yourself, how can you help others?
And that is something that is often not realized when you're young.
Yeah, I think that comes with age, right? Like,
yeah. With age comes wisdom and experience, right?
Yeah.
That's also part of that, servant leadership that we as an organization push, which I think is the right approach. But that said, if you're always putting others first, you can find yourself lacking.
Yeah. Take care of yourself. Be proud of your accomplishments. Brag about them. Help other people brag about theirs. But make sure that you're dedicating time to actually being a functional, valuable human. Educating yourself, and it's okay, man. Dedicate time to yourself.
Yeah.
If people are judging you for that, that probably says more about them than.
Agreed.
Okay.
So that's that trip. So came home, and then the next trip, 2010, was a trip that I was very proud of too, because we got to build something else that was incredible. So and I don't really remember much in that time between, except for like a lot of surgeries. So
that's Afghanistan or Iraq?
Afghanistan. Yeah. Okay. I did go to the 18 Fox course. I went to the Special Forces Intelligence Sergeant course. Yep. Oh, I actually did something else that was really cool. As I was going to go to Ranger School. I had a Ranger School slot. I went to Ranger Regiment's pre-Ranger and failed. Right, and that was a pretty good hit to my ego. I'm like, wow. And the reason I failed was real stupid too. So I was like, man, maybe I'm not as awesome as I think I am. Yeah. So I never got a chance to go back to Ranger School after that because of injuries. That was my one chance, and I decided to get shot a bunch. And it's looking back, I'm like, man, it's the one school I've always just really ever wanted to go to. Not because I think I think you can learn a lot there. I like infantry stuff. I think it's cool to learn about yourself and so I can see if you can make it. Like I don't know if I can make it or not. Like especially after pre-rangers, like wow, maybe I would make it because I obviously didn't pass this. So
why did you fail?
Yeah. Well, I mean, our generation, deployments and injuries, deployments and injuries, deployments and injuries, and sometimes it's hard to.
Yeah, that's it. It's definitely a thing. Well, I failed because I told you I had a photographic memory. I was always really good at land nav.
Yeah.
So we get out to the land nav portion, doing really well. And the first point I get out there, I'm like all confident. I'm like, man, this is my wheelhouse. This is land nav. I get out there and I'd blown off. The cadre had told us, like, hey, we don't have the best equipment out here. PCC your stuff, check your compasses. A lot of them are broken. Yeah, I didn't do this. So I pulled up my compass at my first point, my first attack point to get to my first point. Compass is broken. I'm like, oh, that's stupid.
I probably should have looked.
Ran all the way back, grabbed another compass. Guess what I didn't do?
Check it.
I didn't check the compass. So I ran all the way back to my attack point, opened the compass, also broken, right? So this is something this is a basic thing. Like, you always check your mission critical gear, right? And that was, after that, man, I've always been like this PCC, PCI Nazi. Like, no, you check everything. Not just yourself, but everything. Everything gets checked because it's gonna bite you in the butt if you don't.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a basic thing. So so that's why I failed pre-rangers. Land navigation, something I was very confident in, and it was a good experience for me too, because it showed me okay, yeah, you're not as cool as you think you are, for one, right? And then you got to go back man, I felt pre-ranger to everybody, and then people look at you, but it's I think in this community you probably need your ego check maybe quarterly, because
it's healthy.
Start huffing your own oxygen, believing in your own hype. Like, the reality is, none of us are all that amazing or as horrible as we think we are on any given day, right? Like, we're all just humans, and every skill is perishable. I probably should have spent more time on some land nav before that too, because I got out there, I was like, I'm still pretty confident, but I still going back, no, hey, check all your stuff. This is how you do it. This is how you live your life. This is how you live it professionally and personally, and this is just what you're not going to sacrifice. And checking your equipment is one of them, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that was before. Then 2010, we went in and we were it was in a combat mission, and we were put in charge of, or we were charged with standing up the Afghan Special Forces unit. So, and they're like, hey, check it out. This is what you're going to do. You're going to conceptualize and you're going to create this special, because we had the Afghan Special Operations Commandos, right? But now these are the Afghan Special Forces who are going to look whatever they need to look like. You guys need to figure that out, and we're going to give you absolutely zero authority or resources to do any of that. So,
sounds about right.
Now make it happen.
Good luck. So, we had to build the selection process, how we get them in, what it looks like, and being a 15-person team. We're like, okay, see a lot of value. Like, it's going to be a civil affairs and a psychological operations person on an ODA, just with all your other MOSs, right? And then the Afghans are like, you're going to also add a religious officer, so we had to put that on there. And then we built the very first teams, and they were extremely successful. We built another program there too that I can talk about now. They're not classified. We call it the Population Studies Group, but it was a combination of the Special Forces and the Commandos, and they're going out, and it was also combining the psychological operations and civil affairs. So the concept was that they had 3 different elements. It would go out as a white cell with the civil affairs people, their civil affairs people and cops or whatever in plain clothes, into a place where we thought some people were of interest, right? And then, so what was their reaction, right? So we'd also have some reconnaissance type stuff going on, and then we'd create a reason to be there. Hey, we're going to start this project, right? So, and a lot of maybe some of the people building the project were on another team collecting some information, right? Trying to figure okay, if we know these people are interesting, what are they doing now? Maybe the solution is now we're going to use psychological operations to affect the area, right, and solve issues. Or maybe it is the next truckload full of workers, the next day is full Afghan commandos, and they go do a raid, or whatever it might be. But in the first couple missions they went on, they came back with a lot of information that helped us build a lot of stuff. And then, they got shut down too, because oh, this is very, very CIA-ish. You can't do this. I'm like, well, this isn't our program for one. It's an Afghan program at this point. I can't shut them down. And then they were like, no, you're going to figure out a way to shut them down. I'm like, well, why? They're like, I got accused at one point, you're teaching classified stuff, and we're going to start an investigation on you. I'm like, well, we had the CENTCOM J3X coming, bless off on the POI, so good luck with that.
Yeah.
This is, everything's on the level, right?
Who was telling you to shut it down?
Some people up higher, just, why? I don't know. Nobody, to this day, I have no idea why. They were, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to stop. Once we stopped supporting it, obviously, it had to go away, because I was like, All right. Well, I'm sorry, guys. And the Afghans they were very proud of it because it was working. It was something that they were actually like. It came to a point like we weren't telling them what to do. We'd come down there and help them with stuff, but they were planning it out and doing it.
Do you think that would have been, once it was fully functioning? Do you think that's something that the Afghans could have kept up on their own without support?
No, not the way we were doing operations over there. Like we never really took a whole lot of time to really develop their battalion staffs and whatnot, right? Just because we couldn't.
Right.
That'll be in one of the many books that I write about when the Army tries to stop me when I get out from writing. And I'm not going to be like complaining in these things. It's like I think that we have some institutional hubris that it doesn't allow us to really take some lessons learned from the whole thing. Like everybody focuses on the pool. Like no, what about everything left of that we probably didn't do right? Mostly because of hubris and just these stupid decisions that we'd also made in Vietnam that we'd also made all the way back. And like when you're talking about like the Malacan Field Force time frame, we don't have to like sit there and dwell on it, but why not just take those lessons and learn from them so we don't do them again, right? Because humans make stupid decisions. We made some stupid decisions. Let's look at it, evaluate it, let's learn from it, and let's be more awesome, right?
But things like planning and developing a staff is not something that's sexy. So it doesn't.
It's not quick, right?
It doesn't brief well. It doesn't necessarily go in accordance with our timelines, and so the blocking and tackling, some of the most important stuff, are the very things that usually just get hand waved.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's hard to measure, right?
And it's hard. And it's not sexy. And like our metric for success for the staff that trip was if I can get the battalion S2, the intel people, just give a piece of paper to the battalion S3, the operation people, that helps them recommend a mission to the commander. That's success.
Yeah.
I remember there's a story my mentors, Michael Ritter, tells all the time. That same trip, all the civilians, all the bigwigs, they're like, hey, Chuck and me, we're gonna teach them how to really do in-depth military decision-making process. And I'm a big fan of planning. I love the MDMP process. Like I think that people overcomplicate it. I don't know of a better way to plan personally. Like when I start my day, like I evaluate, like let me do some mission analysis. What am I getting myself into? All right, now
little IPB.
All right, I'm gonna like now that I understand, like give myself a little mission analysis brief. Like now that I understand what I'm getting myself into, now I can come up with a commander's intent of what I want to accomplish. Now I'll come up with a course of action. I'll war game them. I'll decide on what I'm going to do, and then I'll go execute it. Right? It's pretty logical and simple, right? Just really
we do it
not,
without thinking about it.
It's not more complicated than that. Like you can make it more in depth as you need it, but the cycle is that easy, right? Like real quick before I finish this story about Mike Larerio, like I don't fly from here to the West Coast without doing an MDMP. Like if say I'm flying and I have to stop in Dallas, Texas halfway, right? And I get off the plane, I'm like, man, I got to go to the bathroom. I was like, okay, like that's receive the mission, right? That's step one. Okay, let me do some mission analysis. Like where am I? Like how much time do I have? Is there even a bathroom in there? Okay, and I go in like, okay, well, I have enough time. Like, so I've evaluated to give myself a little mission analysis brief. Now I've decided, okay, my commander's intent is I'm going to use the bathroom before I get on the plane. So I got 30 minutes, I got time. There's a bathroom here. Cool. Some co-dev, like I go in this bathroom and there's pee all over the toilet seat, right? I go in this bathroom and there's just some nasty person in there just sitting there with the door open staring at me. So I'm not going to use that one, right? Next one, like this one doesn't have any toilet paper. But then I find one that has everything. There's no person in there. It's not pee everywhere. It's toilet paper. Like, okay, like I'm going to war game. It seems like this one. I'm going to choose that course of action. I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to produce an order, but I'm going to produce something, right? And then boom, I just did an NDMP, right? Like, because it's just a logical way to live, to do some stuff. Even IPB, like everybody's like, oh, so complicated. It's 4 steps. Like, where am I going? What do I know about the area that has nothing to do with the enemy? What do I know about the enemy? Okay, what's the most likely and the most dangerous thing that they could do that I can plan around, right? And I can make it more complicated. That's it. It's a logical way to think because I'm not a damn genius, right? Like,
right.
Anyway, so they wanted to teach the Afghans is in-depth MBMP, and I'm usually for that kind of stuff. I was like, hey guys, that's a little bit too advanced right now. They're like, no, it's easy, Chuck. You're one of the ones that's always talking about planning stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you're not listening. Like, we need to start way left of that first. And they're like, no, you're an idiot. And they kept planning. I was like, okay, I'm going to bring the battalion S2 into this next meeting. And so I bring the battalion S2, and they're going off. They're all excited about these cool things you're going to teach them and how it's going to make everybody better. I'm like, hey, guys, here's the Afghan S2. He's been doing this for about 2 years now. Let's ask him what he thinks about all this, right? And he's like, all right, gentlemen, really, the first thing I would like to do is learn how to read a map.
Yep.
Right? I'm like, yep. all right, do you guys see what I'm talking about? They're like, man.
You were right.
It's like, and it just, the whole room went quiet. I was like, look, man, like, I got it. Like, this is important, but we need to get there. Like, let's start with some basic stuff first. Like,
basic reading.
the staff sections probably need to just understand what they do, and then how do they do that specifically to them, and then we can get into bringing them all together into some kind of MD&P process, right? But unless we get there, and it's like, and the reality is, like, I don't have the time to do it because we're one ODA allocated against an entire battalion, and that means that we're always out on missions or we're training with their amber cycle. So I just don't have the resources or the time to really develop a staff. And really, like, people talk about the SFABs in a negative way and soft. Like, I can't do the stuff like they can. Like, SFABs are perfectly set up to do, like, fires, specifically artillery. I'm not an artilleryman. I don't know about fires and logistics and really be able to work with a staff and bring that staff to the level they need to be. I can never do that with an ODA.
Right.
Just because we don't have the knowledge and the expertise in those areas. Like, I know how staff works. I've been on staffs, like, but as far as like those, those other functions that are extremely important, I can't do that. Well, an SFAB is set up perfectly to do that. Mm-hmm. Right? They can do that. I could do the tactical stuff better than an SFAB probably could when it comes to more complex things, but they will always be able to do the bigger picture stuff way better than an ODA can. And that's, thinking back, like, man, if we could have like been partnered with that kind of element in those, it probably would have been very powerful, where they were like really taking on the bigger stuff that's extremely important, and we're taking on this, the tactical stuff, which is also important. But if you're going to build an enduring entity that's going to survive you, well, this is almost way less important than this. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. And, at the end of the day, like people are like, oh, we can't want it more than them. Like, man, if you look at the numbers at the end of the war, like, the Afghans were dying in droves. Like, they were dying faster than we could replace them on the battlefield. So don't come at me with that. Was there Afghans that didn't want to fight and ran away? So, like, yeah. But for the most part, those people were out there just dying, and we kind of left them hanging. So,
yeah.
I think what everybody would like to know is, did the S2 learn how to read a map?
By the time you were finished.
Yes, he did. Because I was an intel sergeant at the time, so we didn't know how to read a map. But unfortunately, I couldn't get the battalion staff sections to talk to each other. So that was the next hurdle. That was why I was like, okay.
Was it a cultural difference thing? Tribal differences?
It wasn't even tribal. It was that I could never figure it out, to be honest with you. Like, well, we're not going to go talk to him, right? Because it wasn't. I don't think it was tribal. It was more like they wanted to look like they were the man, right, to the boss, right?
Knowledge is power.
And if they shared that, then that was
right.
Yeah, it depletes their own authority.
It is so weird. It's cultural in the sense that if you were the one with the knowledge, then you have the power.
So you can't give it to the S3, then he's going to take what you had. You should be getting the credit for it. So everybody was just would take everything and feed it right to the commander, right? Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the Afghans aren't the only ones that operate that way, unfortunately.
No, that's very true.
No, I got to take a bathroom break real quick. Can we do that?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So we took care of our RC Cola. We're good to go. Yeah, got a smile for the camera.
I didn't have any more. You guys took it from me. They didn't even let me to drink it. They're like, no, just put this in there for the plug.
This is why we can't. This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, we had to make sure we get that big RC Cola check. Yeah.
That RC Cola money. I mean, it's royal. It's royalty, right? Okay. Where do we leave off? So, are you a team sergeant at this time?
I was an E7 team sergeant in 2010. Yeah, I was the trip, took over the team as an E7. Yep.
Okay, so you're the senior non-com on the team.
Yeah, that was in 2010. Yeah.
Okay, so what formalized schooling formal and then informal schooling do you receive in order to get prepared for team sergeant time on an ODA?
Well, none at the time. You went through all your leadership schools, which is like PLDC, which is going our primary leadership development course, which you go to E5, and then it's now senior leadership course. At the time, it was called advanced non-commissioned officer course. Went to that, and then I'd gone to the special forces intelligence sergeant course. But nothing prepares you to be a team sergeant in special forces. Absolutely nothing. Even now, you get a course you got to take before you become an E8, but nothing prepares you for being in charge of that many people who think very highly of themselves, right? Like, and when I was a team guy, I was also exactly part of that problem, right? Like nothing. It's an amazing. It's great. It's a great experience, but it's also extremely mentally taxing to do that. But nothing prepares you for that because, and trying to wrangle, and you're working with incredibly smart people that were specially selected to be a pain in the butt and to resist and not really be all that great at being very rigid. So yeah, it's great, but nothing prepares you for that. There's no formal schooling for that.
I mean, it's all personalities at that level.
It's all personalities, and I mean, you can have the greatest people. I remember even later when I was an E8 team sergeant, my medic, there's helmet cam footage on. You can Google, you can go to my YouTube and watch me get shot on there. But the medic that's in that video, whose helmet cam it's from, right? Like, who I love to this day. Like, he's like the most fantastic medic ever. Like, it's personality. Like, hey, dude, like, I love you saved my life, but if you keep this up, I'm going to send you to the B team type of thing, right? Like,
what have you done for me lately?
Right. So things like that. But I was also that person, right? Like I'm the person, like the team member's like, all right, Chuck, you're doing a great job, but if you do this again, I'm gonna have to smack you, right? Just it's that everybody's part of the problem until you get in that position. You're like, oh wow, I'm very sorry that I ever acted like that, and you go apologize to everybody that was in charge of you before. They're like, oh, yeah.
Were you elevated to lead the team that you had been on just before?
Yeah. I was already on that team, so I was the 18 Fox Intel Sergeant. I just took over the team as a E7 for the remainder of the trip, and then when we got back, an E8 took over the team at that point. So, and I had to go finish. I was also told that I wasn't allowed to be on an operation or even look at an ODA for a while. So
right.
I was in limbo for a little bit, and then until I finished my last surgery.
Okay.
How long after your recovery was complete before you shoehorned your way into another tour?
Oh, it was right away. So, unfortunately, that team deployed. The team I was on, and they'd lost some people pretty, shortly into that trip. So that was kind of a little guilt of not being there and whatnot. And then the medic that pulled me from the RG-33 in 2008, a guy named Dan Adams, he had gone over to 10th Group. And it was like a month or so after we lost those guys that Dan's wife called me. I was like, hey, obviously, he's like, Dan's in Afghanistan. Yeah, like, well, he just died. So found myself in a bit of a dark hole mentally there, like a pretty deep pit. I was like surviving off like benzodiazepines, lorazepam, which is not really conducive to good mental health either. Being able to pull myself out of that. Had my last couple surgeries. It was the end of 2011. I was supposed to take over a certain team. I went on a trip with them to Tajikistan, and then when I came back, like, hey, we need you to take over this other team. So then we deployed in 2012. So it was like between my last surgery and that deployment, it was probably like 7 months between. Yeah.
I mean, to that point.
Well, not even 7 months. A little way less than 7 months.
Yeah. To that point, is that probably the most depressed you'd ever been?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I didn't even know, like, that's why I'm now, like, I know, like, you can think you're good, and then all of a sudden you're at the bottom. You're like, oh, how did I even get here, right?
Yeah.
So, and it can happen to anybody. It's like, I think that people think that you're setting yourself up for failure. Anybody, if you just think that you're so strong that you're never going to be there. No, you're human. I promise you're going to be there at some point. It's just a matter of being able to understand yourself to a point, being okay with the fact that you don't have to be a badass, right? I think that's one of our big problems with mental health, at least in the military. People, like, their egos get in the way, like, no, I can't possibly be this weak or blah, blah. No, it's okay to be weak sometimes. You're not impressing anybody by trying to be a badass. I'm just like, if you're like that type of guy that goes around just being like being, an ass all the time to everybody, like, you're not impressing anybody, man. Like, it's just, if you're always in that mode of just not being cool to be around, like, that's some kind of weird weakness, man. Like, and you're not impressing anybody. You're not. And what do you accomplish? You're not accomplishing anything. Nobody respects you. I promise you, nobody's like, man, let's hang out with Tony. He's just always like really like threatening everybody and just making me feel like I'm stupid. I mean, I like Tony. Like, no, man, everybody talks behind your back. I promise you. And you're not even being a good human being. So what are you doing?
Right.
But we all know people that make that their personalities, right? It's like, it's ridiculous. And then you're like, all right, bro. And later in life, they have no friends, and it's obviously it's never their fault. It's
Right.
Was there a I guess what helped pull you out of that hole? Was it going to counseling? Was it a specific person, or maybe several people, or was it something that you did on your own, or what helped get you out of that darkness?
A couple things at the time, like we only had like one really therapist for the group. That's right in the Thor 3 programs were coming online. Once I realized, like, you know what, like this is nobody else's fault that I'm here but mine. I have agency. I have to take responsibility for how I'm feeling right now. We oftentimes can't control much of the stuff that happens in life, but we can always control our reactions and our actions. And a lot of times we can't even control our emotional states, right? But you can always control how you decide to go about dealing with that, right? So I was like, okay, I have to deal with this. I got to figure out why I'm in this place. I have a pretty good feeling of why I'm here. Like, but let me really evaluate this and dig deep and be okay with just being in that state. And then, like, okay, well, let me get off the meds, and I'll just be anxious and feel this way and be okay with that, right? Because I'm not gonna die of a heart attack, even though it feels like it. And then really dedicating myself to like understanding like how these different things work with like mental health and different things that you can use, and then started working with a psychotherapist, and really started working with the sports psychs when they started to come online too. And now I'm a big believer that you can get way left to bang with your own mental health, to where you really understand yourself better, to where when you start feeling those different emotional fluctuations, you have tools. Because your mindset, you can have the craziest mindset in the world, like everything's about grit, but if you know the tool set to also help you deal with, I mean, like, to me, I think all the just wake up at 4:30 and do hard stuff, like that works when you're younger, man. Don't work. Like I can't. I got weak genes. I would never be able to use grit to get through everything. I got to train a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
And same thing mentally.
Smart versus a strong ranger.
Right. And so yeah, I did it with the help of some friends, right? But I also I think once you like take accountability, like I see a lot of people, well, I did that, and I did to say like, oh, I'm doing that because of PTSD or whatever. Like, man, there's things that contribute, but you are responsible for your own actions. And once you take accountability of that, like, hey, man, because, we're just humans. We're going to do stupid stuff. We're going to do things that we're shameful for, but it's still your fault. No matter what it is, it's still your responsibility to own it. And I think once I did that, like, I was like, okay, here's where I'm at. I don't like that. Here's where I need to be. And I'm going to create a plan, and I'm going to get to where I need to be. And that's what I did.
Once you had identified that and kind of mapped it out, as far as being a leader is concerned, do you think this made you a better leader? Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have a problem anyway. Like, I'm oftentimes probably less empathetic than I should be. I'm getting, much better at it in my old age. And I heard an interesting podcast the other day where I think it was on the Modern Wisdom, where they were talking about, a lot of people, like there's certain people in the world just believe that they're going to warp the world around them, right? And that's kind of my mindset. I believe that if you truly think that you're an unstoppable force of nature in life, then you will be. Like, I can't control if like a plane crashes and kills me right now, right? But I can control everything I can control, right? It's like, it goes back to the serenity prayer. Like, hey, God, please grant me the serenity to understand the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? So putting that effort towards the things that you can actually change, but having the courage to do it, because sometimes that's scary. Like when you're in that black hole mental state, like, it's a scary place to be because I don't want to be weak. I obviously am Green Beret. I can't be like this. No, you can be and you will be. So like accept it and then figure out how you get out, right? So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that's kind of a lot of words.
Well, the Serenity Prayer is a recurring guest on this show. We end up talking about it one way or the other in every episode.
Yeah, so. You don't have to be like, maybe not a Christian, maybe you believe something else, but the concept of it is universal, right? Like there's a lot of things you cannot change. There just simply isn't. But you can always affect the things that you can personally affect. So figure out what that is and actually affect it. Because time is our most valuable resource. Yeah. We're going to run out of it. It's non-renewable. So make sure you're dedicating it and using it in something that brings you towards your desired end state. You're not just doing random acts of life, like, we call it random acts of training in SF, where you see like the teams, like they do a lot of really cool stuff, but it's like just random. It's
towards what ends?
It may lead to the desired end state, but if you actually have it planned out and have it, has purpose, has a plan, it's feasibly progressive in nature, utilizes periodization, you're going to achieve your end state because that's how you do it, right? Not doing random acts of stuff. So yeah, so the black hole like was in there.
Yep.
Got out, went to Tajikistan with one team, came back, and then went right back to Afghanistan with the other team that actually took over as a team sergeant for like almost 4 years.
Where are you this go round?
So this was, we were at Camp Moorhead again. So in 2010, I was at Camp Moorhead when we were setting up the Special Forces program. Now we're back in Camp Moorhead, and we're aligned with the 6th Special Operations Candak there, which is their national like mission force. Like every province had its own commando Candak for like hard-hitting operations. And commandos were designed, you're the hammer. You're going to come in and smash some stuff. So that's who we were aligned with. And it wasn't too long into that trip. I mean, we're doing missions with them. And it's just back-to-back missions, really. Like, you're back for, maybe like 6 days or whatever, and then you're back.
This is mostly direct.
It's all direct, actually.
Direct
You're gonna fly in, like team room comes in, you got your ready room that has like, you're always stocking it full of all your explosives and everything, because you're gonna go, and if you're gonna go to a village, you're probably gonna go through 50, 60 charges for entry charges, and it's always going to be, you're going into a really bad area. You're bringing in the hammer, and you're going in there for whatever reason they want you to go in there and make a statement, and then you're going to pull out your whatever prisoners you got, and you're going to leave, right? Yep. And that's it. You're not going to be there forever. So doing that, and this is kind of where hubris got in the way. We got this one mission, and again, this goes back to some of the dumb stuff that I find entertaining. We got a call one night. They're like, hey, Chuck, my team leader in the gym is like, hey, there's going to be a company level operation, but we need your concept of the operation by tomorrow. And at the time, these ConOp decks are like, we're talking like an 88 page thing, right? Like, okay, well, I told team leader, came back, start cranking this thing with the team. And your comp's not your detailed plan, because you haven't done planning at them. You don't even know where HLZs are, right? But you're giving a concept of how you're possibly going to solve this problem. But it's not real. It's just on paper. You haven't done any detailed planning. It's kind of just it's permission slip to get out the door. Yep. Like, hey, we need this by 9 o'clock in the morning. So we stay up all night. We crank this thing out. And like 8 o'clock, we get a call. And they're like, hey, on the cover slide, it says the Afghans have had 0% involvement in this. I'm like, well, yeah, you guys called me yesterday. I was like, you didn't involve them in the planning? Like, well, they haven't even been notified by their hire. And plus, this document says secret on it, right? I can't share any of this with them. I can't even tell them about this mission until their hire tells them about this mission, which isn't going to be for like a week, right? Because the mission was like a week and a half out. And they're like, oh, the boss isn't going to like that. And I'm like, well, I'd be like, hey, man, just edit the slide. Put whatever percentage you want in there. It's not going to bother me. Like, whatever percentage you think you need is like, I don't care if it's 0%. The team leader doesn't care if it's 0% because this is real, right? But if you need to change it, then change it. It's just a slide, right? It's not real. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then they come back like, okay, hey, we noticed you don't have a key leader engagement slide on there. I was like, well, yeah, you're asking me to go into this village and basically destroy it.
If you're doing DA.
Yeah, so yeah, but at the end, it's about the hearts and minds. So you're going to come in there like, hey, I know we just destroyed everything, but, you need to really love the government of Afghanistan. Like, it's like, okay, so, hey, we're gonna get everybody together. We're going to tell them to, you guys need to support Afghanistan. So, yay, we just blew up all your stuff. Yeah. It's like, come on, man, what are we doing here? It's kind of ridiculous. But again, I'm saying that I love the Army. I'd go back and do all that stuff again. I'm just saying that some of the stuff we do is kind of dumb sometimes. We just need to be able to accept that. It's okay. Humans, man. It's fine. We don't got to be perfect.
Maybe laugh it off a little bit.
Yeah, we don't got to be perfect. But I was like, that stuff's funny to me anyway. It's like, okay, whatever. Anyway, so, but this particular mission, we're going to this place called Tagab Valley, which anybody's been there knows that place is not, kosher. There's a team that was there already, and they're like, hey, man, we need some outside support to come bring the hammer into these two valleys because they didn't have them. They were getting hit all the time and getting hemmed up. So we had another team with us from first group, and the first day they were going to go into a northern valley, and they did, and they got hemmed up. And they were like in the super close firefight where the PJ, the pararescue guy, got real banged up. Like a ton of grenades like went off next to him, and it was weird because he was like almost like a peace activist type of guy before that, like very hippie. He was like raised by hippies, like didn't understand like why anybody wanted to do violence. So he wanted to be a PJ, so he could save people. After that, when he came back for the mission, he's like, yeah, I get it, man. Like violence is sometimes the answer. And then
it is indeed,
right. So we were going out the next night, and it was funny because going into this, we had the battalion S2 section actually flew in. They're like, hey, like this is, a lot of times numbers are inflated. They'll say like 200, 300, 400, and it's like, like 30 people. It's like, no, this is for real. Like they have the ability, they have that many on the ground, but they have the ability to reinforce with 100 more if they want to. Like these guys are for more like, yeah, I don't think it's real, man. I've been in Afghanistan many, many times. I've never seen them be able to mass like that. Mm-hmm. And if they did, we'd be able to hit them with air. So how could they mass like that? Like, well, we got on the ground. We found out like the terrain there, like you can't see into that thing. Like they could mass all they wanted, and they did. And we did run into that many. And we landed and we cleared all night to what we thought were going to be our battle positions, because our whole goal was we're going to get in there, go through some compounds of interest, but we're going to set up key battle positions and bait as many fighters as we could out and just attrit them, right? Mm-hmm. Attrit the force. That's kind of our recipe, and that's what worked. When we got there, like those with the terrain, like because overhead imagery and everything did not do that play. So when we got down there, I was like, all right, these battle positions aren't useful for what we're trying to do at all, and like you can't even see anywhere. So we spent like another hour trying to find something that was really workable. And we were planning on 3 battle positions. We ended up settling on 2, and then before called a prayer in the morning, like there was grenades coming over the walls and there was massive firefights, and we have to push these guys. They were like within 5 meters on us, because you could get that close and you couldn't see anybody. So we had to push them out. And a couple hours later, we've been hitting it with drones and everything. Like one of our overhead ISR platforms, like, hey, there's a large force coming up now this section a couple kilometers away, and they're moving towards my battle position. So I talked to the commander. I was like, hey, what we can do is we can get out here and I can actually ambush them as they're coming up, this way. And we're gonna that's a great idea. So we'd already been in a pretty big gunfight all morning, like very close. I'm talking like when I'm talking close, I'm talking like from me to you type of close with people. So like, okay, so we get this force out and we're maneuvering into where we're gonna set up our ambush. Well, we got out, we crossed this threshold, and the only Americans were me, my medic, and a CRD guy, a chemical guy. We used him for sensitive site exploitation. So the chemical guy's in the back, the medic's behind me. I'm always up front in these types of things. So I'm out with this initial Afghan force. Excuse me, hold on, the RC Cola. The RC Cola's hit me.
That's how they get you.
And all of a sudden, they had an ambush set up for us with, multiple machine guns, plenty of small arms, a good, a lot of people there. So mass amount of gunfire comes in. One of the Afghan commandos gets hit. I'm luckily somehow like I'm on this wall where I can just pivot around it. Like I don't know how I ended up getting that lucky. So all the rounds came like they just missed me. All the other Afghans left. So then there's this Afghan in the kill zone. I'm standing there by myself. I'm trying to engage, but every time I even attempt to peek around this corner, it's a ridiculous amount of gunfire coming in. It doesn't even, like I can't explain it. It's terrifying in those situations. It's not, it's like combat's not all that fun sometimes. I'm like, man, I got this wounded Afghan out there, and I could see him through this crack. I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm the only one there. I'm looking back, and my medic's like, Chuck, are you good? I was like, I'm good, but we got a wounded guy. And at the time, it was the perfect timing. All the other aircraft we had overhead were refueling. We'd had some A-10s before that. So we had a couple ISR platforms that were armed, because we hit some units with Hellfires, and we had 2 Apaches. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not really comfortable calling in some rockets, but I got to get some fire in here so we can get this Afghan around the corner, right? So trying to call in fire. Well, it turns out both the Apache guns are inoperable for whatever reason. They just won't work, which does happen. I've had one go down in combat. I've never seen 2 of them go down in combat. So, and I'm like, why aren't we getting fire? Like, hey, the guns are inoperable. They're, they over the radar, like they're bent, which doesn't mean the actual thing is bent. It just means that the gun's not working. So I was like, all right. So the Afghan platoon leader come back with a bunch of Afghans, right? Like, hey, I got all the guys back, right? I was like, okay, hey, we got to go get this dude. So I talked to the medic. I was like, hey, be prepared. Receive some casualties. It's probably going to hurt. But we got to get this guy, because at that time it's going to be mission failure, because if the enemy retrieves this Afghan commando, that's mission failure, and that can't be allowed to happen. So I was like, hey, we're gonna go here. Probably gonna take some casualties here, but we're gonna get this guy. So we end up going around this corner, and sure enough, there's like two enemy, like bounding, like textbook style, like bounding, like you'd see any of our people do. Took them out. A couple machine guns. The platoon leader and a couple Afghans went this way. A couple of people went this way in an L shape, and there wasn't a whole lot of cover. So it's a very close firefight with no cover. And it's just into like, hey, in that situation, you're going to close. Like once you go around that corner, just like in CPU, it's like, all right, well, two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to kill everybody that needs to be killed, or I'm going to die in the process, right? You're not going to stay in the fatal funnel. Same thing here. We got to get this person. So we go around. It's this very close firefight with no cover, and you're just moving towards the threat. And the threat is a lot. And you're like, basically just trying not to poop your pants and still function. And I'm killing one machine gun. I thought we killed another one and a bunch of other people. And, threw a grenade. And it was like, okay, well, that guy's dead too. So we started dragging this Afghan. He's just like unresponsive, like he's dead. He's not even dead. He had his finger shut off. He got shot through the leg, but I don't know, in his mind he told himself that he was dead, I guess. So he wasn't being cooperative, trying to get him this poop ditch with like actual poop running through it and a little wall in front of that. So trying to get him around, and we start taking more fire, engage, and then this machine gun comes back up and he starts to engage the platoon leader. So I was like, okay, I know where this guy's at. So I transition to where this machine gun is, start firing, but I'm off a little bit. So he transitions to me, and the first round hits my right leg, right near the knee, and that pops me forward like in a Superman position, like I'm flying. The next round hits my upper back, like right on the shoulder blade, breaks through the artery and the brachial nerve complex, and then goes down and lodges in my lower back. And then the third round like nicked my butt. So what saved me though is I went down face first in this poop ditch. And if you look at the helmet cam video, you can like the stuff on my face is definitely poop. But
saved your life.
Right. The rest of the rounds though, because the 100-round belt and PKM went on the wall, and he stopped. I was like, okay, this guy's reloading. I know where he's at now. I'm gonna kill this guy. So I got up and I went to engage, and I could physically not bring my arm would not work, and it was pretty painful. And I was like, man, this is a pretty bad hit. This is not good. I was like, I gotta get it here. So I was like, looked at the commando. I was like, hey man, let's drag this guy around, because I reached down and I tried to grab the commando again, but I couldn't physically grab him, and for whatever reason, I couldn't get him with this arm. So it's like, hey, get this guy, let's go around. So I came around the corner, and you see the helmet cam footage, just like Dan's like, hey, you good? I come around the corner, I'm like, I'm hit. And then, takes everything off, like shoots me with some morphine, and then end up self-evacing out of there. And they put me in a sked kill, and they had a fight for a number of hours to get me out of there. And that was like some truly crazy stuff. Like they're fighting street to street with me in a sked kill. All the Afghans left my platoon leader and my Delta, right? And then they're getting radio traffic. They're getting like, hey, the birds are getting the traffic that these guys know you're there by yourselves, and they're about to snatch you guys up and the dude they just shot, right? So they're like, oh man. So they're fighting street to street for that, and they got the AC-130 overhead. It was the first time we had daylight AC-130 to where they're pressurized with a 30 millimeter cannon. So they're just smoking people, and we had one element that had to go and seize this possible HLZ, because the HLZs we had planned originally, they were overrun. There's no way we could get to those.
Yep.
And they had to fight for a long time just to clear enough space to get me out. And the first bird they sent in to try to get me out was going to hoist me out. It was a Pavlo, the Pedro aircraft at the time, but I got shot to hell coming in, thankfully. My team leader always tells the story. He's like, man, the only time I've ever seen you scared, and my entire time I've known you, is when we were talking about hoisting you out and you were kind of drugged up, and he's like, you reached up and you grabbed me, like, no, you can't. I can't die dangling on the end of this rope.
Dope on a rope.
Right? So I was like, oh, thankfully that thing got shot up, because I think it would have definitely got shot down. So they ended up getting me medevaced out, but then after that, it was like getting late, and they were now just completely surrounded. And the SOTF was like, hey, like we might have to leave you there overnight. And they're like, the Afghans like, the Afghan was like, yeah, we're gonna die, like because
that's bad juju.
Yeah, they're almost out of ammo. Nobody's got water now, and then we brought in we brought in water pumps too. So I guess at that compound they were in, they finally found a well, but that was after everybody was drinking like nasty water for a little bit. Like, no, there's a well right here. Why are you guys drinking like this nasty water? But we also brought water pumps with us, right? But guys were so into it, they're like, I don't have time to get to my water pump and sit here and pump water, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but they came up with a crazy plan, like to do the Mogadishu Mile. Like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. The enemy's not gonna expect this. We're gonna have the AC-130 fire on both sides of the road, going up this road that went up to the infill HLZ. And as we're running, we're just gonna, at this point, there's nobody here that's not here to party. So we're gonna throw hand grenades over the walls, and we're just gonna run down this road as a whole element until we get to safety. And the way they tell the stories, like as the AC-130 is firing, they can hear people like screaming, because they could see where they were getting dark. And then that's what they did. They didn't lose anybody, and they ran like a mile and a half, 2 miles out of there, and that was how they got that day. And then all the chatter after that, the enemy's like, where'd they go? Like, we can't find them. Like, that's crazy. Like, so, and they had IEDs set up all the way up that road too, but because they were so fast and getting past them that there was nobody there to set them off.
They just couldn't trigger.
It's not something that they were expecting. They were expecting, somebody to come in and reinforce.
Yeah.
So they weren't expecting them to move out that way.
Yeah.
So and they all that chatter. But the guy that shot me though decided to get pretty. He was bragging about it on the radio, so they were able to triangulate that, and he got himself smoked from an aircraft because he was decided to brag about shooting me. So, but it was pretty cool. If you watch the video, the A-10s were coming in after refueling. They didn't even ask for permission. I think they hit up the JTAC like, hey, this is what we were prepared to do. Are you cool with that? And the commander's like, yep. And then you can hear all their gunfire coming in. So they were hitting right, the element that we just got an engagement with that shot me. They're hitting all their reinforcements coming in.
Yeah.
Roger and I have a firm affinity for the A-10s.
Yeah, it's a great aircraft, right?
The Spectre and then the Thunderbolt Warthogs too. Both variants.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, you got injured. And Sced code.
Sced code, and then
almost airlifted. Yeah,
and then I died a couple times. Like when they finally got me to Bagram. So on the battlefield, they're giving me this stuff called Hexten, which is they don't use it anymore. I'm one of the reasons why they don't use it, because when I got to Bagram, I'd bled out internally forever. What saved me is in the Skedco, kind of like I was really tight and I was on the back. That really slowed the bleeding back there to a point. But if you look at the photos, and I'll send them to you, I'm like completely black and blue. Like from the neck down, I'm completely black and blue because I bled out internally. So I kept crashing on the operating. When they got in, they couldn't figure out. Like, well, his blood pressure is good, but he's got no SpO2, right? So the reality is what Hexten does. It forces everything into your blood, so your blood pressure is good. But if you don't have the red blood cells anymore, so the first operation they did, they didn't know why I was crashing, so they gave me dissociate, whatever they gave me, fentanyl or whatever. But they didn't give me enough. So I was paralyzed. I couldn't move, but I felt the entire operation, and they knew I felt it because for whatever they're monitoring, like, hey, I don't know why this guy's feeling pain, but he is. But we have to do this anyway because he's bleeding out. So they went and fixed it. And I remember the whole operation for the most part, and that's a terrifying amount of pain. And then the artery popped open again the next, like within 8 hours, I think, of that. And I was like, hey, there's something wrong. And they're like, no, it's just pain from the surgery. Like, no, something's definitely wrong. They were like, oh crap, the artery's open again. So I ended up staying at Bagram for many days, like 3 or 4 days, while they just kept
trying to stabilize you.
Like 13 units of blood before they could fly me out to Germany.
So you could go back to your frequent flyer.
Yeah, go back to my frequent flyer mode. So they didn't close that wound up for a while too. So it was open. I had a big wound vac on there. They didn't actually get the bullet out until Germany. They couldn't get it out, there. So Germany, they were able to suck a lot of the blood out of the pocket back there and then get the bullet, which they wouldn't let me keep.
That was the next question.
Nah, they said they couldn't let me keep it.
So what's the recovery time looking like for this one?
So I got back. I still needed a couple more surgeries. I got back to Fort Bragg at Womack, and they still need to finish up the surgery and close it up. So I think my last surgery was scheduled on a Sunday. Yeah, it was scheduled on a Sunday, I believe. And then, but that Saturday, now we had the Thor 3 staff. So I had a sports psych, the dietitian, the trainer, and the physical therapist meet me in the hotel room. We came with a plan. Like, hey, here's the plan. This might sound stupid. I'm going to go back to combat. So I came with a plan. And I had my last surgery. And then that Monday or that Tuesday, whichever one, but I was in the gym with a bunch of drainage tubes sticking out of me. I think I had 2 drainage bags at that point in time. I'd do my workout. I'd go to the physical therapist and I'd sit down with a dietitian, right? And then once every 2 or 3 days, we'd do like body fat and make sure I was hydrated and everything, go over the plan for that. And then the sports psych would come in and work with me a couple times a week too, like just working on the mental aspect of being able to stay in the zone. And before that, we really incorporated them with our training. We train as a team all the time. We'd bring the sports psych in. So I think that, I was already better prepared to recover anyway because we'd already been training smarter instead of harder.
Right.
And we were using the sports psychs and we're using all the systems. And, it took a long time to relearn how to use this arm. Like when I was saying earlier, even wiping your butt is perishable. Like twice now I've learned that because of ego, where like I couldn't wipe my butt for, at least a month and a half with this hand. So I'm wiping my left hand. And then when I was like, man, I got pretty good motion. I can wipe my butt again. Right. So, I was like, yeah, I got this. No, like dry run, nothing. Just toilet paper. Went for it. Nah, fingers in all the wrong places, right? Because wiping your butt's perishable too if you don't practice it. So, and that happened again the next trip. I didn't learn my lesson because I got shot in the hand the next trip, and then also got too cocky and fingers in the wrong places. But yeah, so this is the interesting part is they're like, hey, Chuck, like, you know, you're not coming back this trip. I'm like, no, I'm coming back this trip. And the sergeant major, the group sergeant major got really pissed at me. He's like, look, Chuck, he's like, quit talking about it. You're not coming back. One day I'd taken some pain pills and some alcohol, probably not the smartest choice. And I was on the phone. I was like, check it out. I'm coming back. And you know what? I told me he could go F himself too, apparently, from what I was told. You know, I'm going to take a civilian flight from Baltimore to Germany. I'm going to give myself like a week off there, just hang out downtown, and then I'm going to catch a medevac right in. And he's like, no, you're absolutely not going to do that. Man, that's exactly what I did. And when I showed up on the tarmac downrange, they were like super pissed. They're like, all right, well, it's a pretty good testament to the Thor 3 program, so we're not going to send you back, right?
Proof of concept.
Right, proof of concept. It's like, but you can't go back out on a combat mission. And I still got back out on a combat mission, too. They weren't very happy about that either. You know, I forgot what we put on the con op as muck chitter or whatever, but they didn't figure it out until it was already in the ground. But I don't remember exactly what we put on there, but yeah, so I got back to combat that trip, and you know, I think that is a good testament to training more intelligently. Right? I always tell people, like, I haven't had all these recoveries because I'm some kind of superhuman or hard ass, but I've done it because I've just actually stopped and started listening to the experts, and I have a tendency to transmit more than I receive. And once I learned to just shut up more and actually listen to the experts, and that's actually been pretty helpful for me. And, you know, I was able to get back to combat because it's exactly what I did. It's like I couldn't have figured any of that stuff out. They're the ones that put all the puzzle pieces together. And then even now, like I'm training for the JFK 50 mile in November, and I plan on taking every Army or every military services PT test with a buddy of mine, Mike Sullivan. And, you know, I just had my 34th surgery. Like, I got 2 fake hips. I got fused back. You know, I've had my hand completely rebuilt. I've got my shoulder rebuilt. I've to relearn how to walk now 3 times. But it's not because I'm some superhuman. It's because
you're the $6 million man.
Yeah, I listen. I got a bunch of very smart people that I know, and now that I just shut up and listen to them, they help me put the pieces of the puzzle together, and I can train more intelligently.
Yeah. You
know, so because I got weak genes, I can't do the whole grit thing, man. I gotta be smarter, right? So I gotta get enough sleep. I gotta eat right. You know? Got back to combat. Did that combat mission. You know, felt pretty good about that. Came home for a little bit, and then, you know, went to the next trip, and then got shot again. So yeah,
that was in the hand. For that.
That was in the hand, and Mike Sullivan, the guy I'm doing the PT tests with in December, he actually got in trouble for that because he was told by the group commanders, like, hey, you can't, you know, Chuck's not going to deploy. And he's like, why would I not deploy, like, this team sergeant? Like, it's ridiculous. I need him. Like, he's a good team sergeant. Like, why would I not deploy him? He said, no, you can't deploy him. He's like, nah, he's going to be fine. He's not going to get shot. And then, you know, I got shot, and he had to call the boss, like, hey.
You were right.
So what had happened was...
You were right.
Was there ever a point going through, not just receiving the injuries, but then in the treatment of the injuries, did you ever think, you know what, I just can't do this anymore?
No, my whole mindset was like, I'm an unstoppable force in nature. I'm going to prove that to myself, and this is just what I'm going to do. That was it. Yeah. It was never a thought, like, no, I'm going to be able to do this stuff again. I mean, it sucked. It was very, very painful. There's times when it would be so painful. I'd be like, yeah, and my arm just wasn't working. I'm like, maybe it's a pipe dream, but I don't care. It's okay. It sucks. This sucks, but that's fine. You got to embrace the adversity and transmute that into wins. I'm going to take this pain and transmute it into something that's a win, right?
Because it could be very alluring, especially, I mean, you're so accomplished at this point. It would be very easy to say, you know what, that was my last rodeo. I've worked and done all this really cool stuff. I can really just go heal and call it a day. And nobody would ever say boo about it.
Yeah. I don't know. And that comes back to like the selfish aspect, you know, 'cause I got like family and stuff too. That probably would have been the smarter thing to do, right? Maybe even the right thing to do.
But I think there is an aspect of our job where everybody's like, "Oh, thank you for your service," and you're so selfless. Like, man, it's a selfish job. Like, man, we're putting ourselves in harm's way. Like, this is a job where there's a high likelihood that you or your friends aren't coming back, or if you do, it's not in one piece, and you're like, no, I want to go do this. Like, okay, well, why would you want to do that? Like, and I don't have an answer for that. I really don't know, but we do it. We volunteer for it. We train for it, and it is an occupation. We're dying and getting severely injured is just simply an occupational hazard, right? It's the nature of war, and we do it, and we don't have those thoughts like, man, I shouldn't for the most part, like I shouldn't be doing this, right? No, I gotta go do this. I want to do this. Like, where's it next? You guys ever seen that meme? It's like Dave Chappelle with the Coke under his nose. He's like, y'all got another one on deployments?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like,
we've all been there.
Right? You're like, man, I gotta get back over there.
And it's like, it's the most counterintuitive thing
That's
ever
ridiculous.
when you think, like, I thought after my first Afghan deployment, I thought the same thing. I got about 2 months being home, and it was like, why? The only thing in the world that I want right now is to go back, and that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, it's like an addiction. It's like it's like some kind of weird dopamine hit. I don't know how to explain it.
It's a purpose too.
Yeah, it's a reason. Even if you go like, yeah, there's all this stupid stuff going on in Afghanistan, we're probably not going to win the war, but hey, let's go back over there.
Yeah.
After spending so much time in Afghanistan and being injured there multiple times and losing friends there multiple times, what was your reaction to when everything fell apart?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty pissed, right? And I wasn't like, okay, it's just this pull-out thing, right? I was pissed off about, like, a lot of things, right? I was like, man, like, and not like to where I was like, oh, screw this one person. Like, man, I've fought and bled under Republicans and Democrats. It's whatever, man. I'm an American. I love my country. I will go bleed for it right now. I don't get emotionally wrapped up in that aspect. But what really kind of made me mad is when the Army leadership came down. They're like, hey man, you guys need to get over this. Like, well, first of all, I take pride in everything I do in life. Like, even if I go, like, have to clean the bathroom, right? So if I'm gonna clean the bathroom and somebody's gonna go in there and mess it up, I'm gonna get a little emotional about that because I take pride in what I did. So if I'm taking pride in my job over here, of course, if we did not, like, at the end of the way, of course, even if I didn't lose anybody or got shot, like, I'd still be, like, emotionally impacted by that, right? But yeah, I was with friends that died on the battlefield. I buried plenty more. I almost, died over there multiple times. So the fact that people were saying that, and then they were saying, well, we couldn't have done it any better. Like, what are you talking? We could do this podcast better. Like, I can take a leak better. Like, you AR everything, and you can always do things better. It's such a pompous, like, just, that's what pissed me off is the arrogance behind, like, not like, let's just own it, man. Like, hey, yep, it ended up this way, right? Okay, and I'm not saying like we shouldn't have pulled out. Like, has to become a time, like, if you're going to be committed, you got to be committed. But maybe it's time to pull out. Maybe it wasn't. But yeah, that's still something that, like, overall, like, we put all this blood, sweat, and tears in, and tactically, I think we did a fantastic job. At least for the, there's always an argument. Is there really an operational level? I think there's an operational level, but from the operational level down, I think we did a fantastic job. So yeah, it's always been like, it's not some out of regret, like, oh man, like, I'm gonna go, like, drink myself over all this stuff, and like oh, this person's death was for nothing, or this, like, I don't ever think about that. Like, we volunteered to do the job. We went and did the job that the country asked us to do, and it's something that we willingly did. It's not like somebody's for it, like, it's no draft, right?
Right.
But it's still still like, man, like, what really makes me mad is that we don't seem to have ever had the humility to, like, actually take some lessons from all that. Like, okay, well, where did we screw it up? And being okay with the fact that as humans we screw things up, we need to learn from them. It's like, no, we couldn't have done any better. Or like, and they're like, well, the Afghans have to want it from themselves. Like, yeah, we kind of put themselves in, like, that situation with, like, a lot of the decisions that we made. So, all that is a true statement. We also built a system over there that probably was never sustainable from the beginning, right? So we also have to take some responsibility in that, right? And that's okay. And, like, I take responsibility. Like, yeah, okay, I could have done X, Y, and Z better, but we could have done that as a country. And I think that if we don't capture that and actually learn from it, like, we're just going to make those same mistakes again. Like, let's stop just being arrogant weirdos and, like, yeah, what did we screw up? Why? and how do we avoid doing that again?
If you can't acknowledge the mistakes you made, then you're never going to learn.
Right. So this is, I don't know, it's just funny when you read history and you look at what we did, you're like, why do we keep doing this? And you can always pinpoint it. Like, there's a good book I read recently called Hubris, and it really takes a good look at some older battles, like with Russia and the Chinese and Korea, and how like even these really accomplished people like MacArthur ended up like going the route they did, who, I mean, complete badasses, right? All because they couldn't get out of that bandwidth of hubris, right? Like, we all find ourselves in that bandwidth, like even like, I preach stuff all the time, but I'll find myself there. I got to back out of it. Like, you don't want to be a coward, but you also don't want to be that arrogant, person just operating off. You've been just huffing your own oxygen about how awesome you are. Like, you got to back off that so you can actually make rational, logical decisions. I think that's unfortunate. That's where a lot of people get to when they're in high levels, and they don't want to. Like, even right now, you see with the Army, like, it's a discipline issue and trust and stuff, and you never see a senior leader take a step back and say, you know what, we are part of the problem.
Yeah.
But where is it? Like, let's evaluate up here. Let's take a good look at ourselves in the mirror first, before we just say, hey, we're obviously up here because we're incredible and we're geniuses, and we wouldn't be here if I wasn't awesome. Just flexing in the mirror, it must be everybody below me.
Yep.
It's not a real thing. Like, it's never a real thing. So, no, let's like, where are we screwed up? Like, let's look at that too, like down here. But how am I responsible? It's probably degrading trust is when every senior leader sits there and looks at their formations. I don't trust you guys to do LISCO. I don't trust my formation to do this. You guys all have discipline problems. Yeah, now we just all think you're a bunch of idiots. And why would we trust you? It's not the way you do it, but that's the way we do it, right? But I think it's some serious, like, just look at, and people are they're gonna hear this like, Chuck, you're still in the Army, you can't be saying that. Like, no, I'm just giving you my truthful opinion. I love the Army. I tell people to join the Army all the time, right? I'd love my son to join the Army. But I think that we need to be honest with some of the stupid stuff that we do and the institutional hubris that exists, where people are just so stuck on how they have the right answers. Like, none of us have all the right answers, man. We're all just humans. We're all incredibly fragile. I know every morning when I wake up, I am wrong somewhere. I know that generally, because my ego is going to cloud my judgment, it's going to take somebody else to point that out, and I got to be open to that feedback, right? Because that's just the way it works.
That's that Bathsheba syndrome.
All right, it's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Right. Be okay with being a fallible human.
At what point did you start thinking about retirement?
About 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. I'd had a back fusion, and at that point in time, that was, I don't know, my 30th surgery or something like that. I don't remember. I had a back fusion. I was like, okay, well, this is it. My career's done. I got to get out of here. And then I started thinking about, like, after the back fusion, I started doing really well physically. I was, like, able to run again. I was like, oh, man, I'll be able to jump again. I can do this. Because before that, like, my legs would just stop working a couple times a year. Like, I was a Syria.
Just lock up.
Yeah. I went to Syria, and that was, like once the epidural injection wore off about halfway through the trip, man, I was, like, just living off, like, low doses of Valium. And it was horrible. Like, I literally ended up in the emergency room a couple times a year because my legs would stop working. It was all due to, like, when I got shot in the back, that bullet, like, kind of, like, it did some serious damage down there. A lot of people are like, oh, because you were, like, deadlifting 540 pounds. Like, I've never actually, that I remember, like, besides, like, in that time frame, like, where I was doing rucks with, like, the bone graft, like, after I started training smart, I've never hurt myself physically training. Like, I can't point to one thing. It's always been, like, some kind of combat injury. But anyway, so I had the back fusion, and I was like, man, I'm feeling pretty good. I was like, I'm going to at least try for one command sergeant major board, right? And I was like, and in my head, I'm like, I'm a shoo-in. I mean, I got 3 Valor Awards, I got 3 Purple Hearts, and excellent in COER. I was like, this is easy. So when they're pretty arrogant, put my paperwork in. And then the board results came out, and I didn't make it. I wasn't on the list. I was like, man. So talked to some people, and they kind of like, yeah, it's your personality, Chuck. Like, and I thought about it. I was like, it's I would not be a good command sergeant major in the Army. Like, I wouldn't want to deal with me working. Like, if I was in charge of me, I wouldn't want to deal with that, because I do stuff like I told you about, like sneaking into deployments and doing other and stuff. And I'm loud, and I don't care about going on podcasts and stating my opinion. And although I disagree with the whole, like, oh, these guys have been in combat, view risk in a way that's not healthy for the force. Like, no. I think we review risk differently, because we know that you must find acceptable risk to win. Like, just mitigating risk will never win you anything. You're going to find yourself in an Afghan situation. Like, it's not a thing. Find acceptable risk. That's leadership. Mitigating risk is just really cowardice and base management level stuff, right? Like, but yes, I wasn't good enough in the eyes of the Army to be a command sergeant major, and but I was good with that. I was like, you know what, that's probably a good call. I can see I am a pain in the ass, and I'm that dude that likes to, not everybody has to be. I'm that dude that, like, I'm out in the water just full speed ahead, like, just creating all the wake for everybody else, and I get it. So not everybody has to be that person, but I do, and there's I have like in this notebook right here, like I review this every morning. I got my personal mission statement, like the things that I'm about in life, but like my core personal values, man, there's a couple that I will never go against. And authenticity, right? Courage and humor are three of those, right? I'm just like, oh, you joke around too much, Chuck. Like, what does that even mean? Like, get out of here. Stop taking yourself too seriously, maybe. Yeah. I was like, but because of that, I'm not that weird, like that person the Army needs. Like, I'm just like, like I'm going to be that safe, and I'm going to speak my mind, and that is not conducive maybe to like higher levels of leadership in the military. We got to be a little more political. So I get it. So I was good with that. So I never competed for CSM. I never put my records in again for that. And I was like, I'm going to get out. But my legs still weren't working properly. I mean, that's weird. I just got this back fusion done. That was a crazy recovery there. And we did an MRI, and they're like, hey, your hips are. They called me like kind of in a panic, like, hey, your hips are dead, which happens. They're necrotic, but the left one's collapsed pretty significantly. And I'll show you guys that photo. It's like when they replaced that one, it was like a lot of it was missing. So we gotta fix those. And in my head, I was like, okay. I was like, we're using a med board. I'm like, no. The Army's not responsible for this. Like, but we did this together. We're gonna fix this together. I'm not gonna be this invalid on the outside. I'm gonna stay in the Army, and we're gonna fix this together. And then I'll get out when it's done. The Army's policy is you can't leave for 6 months after a full joint replacement. So basically, I scheduled my retirement date for 6 months after this hip's like 14 weeks old. My left hip I got replaced. So got 2 fake hips now. So that's how I kind of planned that. So I would have liked to have been out about 2.5 years ago, but maybe 2 years ago. But that's how it panned out. So I'm getting out in July. Excited about that. I think my last job at the Non-Commissioned Officer Academy is great. Like, I asked to go there, and I was, they let me go there, so that was cool. Really having an impact on the future of the force, and being able to go teach at the Captain's Career Course, and dedicating that time to just trying to have a positive impact. Right? I got to do the Pineland Underground podcast, which there's always haters like, oh man, like you guys are just spend time trying to be influencers. Like, well, yes, if you aren't trying to influence people positively every day, everybody you come across in your environment, then what are you doing? Like, and for people to like have a negative opinion on that, like, look at this guy trying to have a positive impact. Like, that says more about you than you will ever know. Don't vocalize that. You look like an idiot, right? You look like a jealous weirdo at that point. Like, don't do that, man. Like, yeah, man. Like, there are those weird influencers out there just making money, right? Like, I don't make any money on the side. Like, any money I make over my paycheck, it goes to good, good purposes. I spend a lot of money on stuff like, the organization I have right now. I spend a ton of money on that. I don't make any money off of it. Just like with this, you guys aren't making money off this either right now. So it's like, right?
But we love, to your core values. Most of those values we share, and we are achieving those through this show.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you about the NCO Academy. And maybe you have an answer for this, maybe you don't. This is something that has been on my mind for a long time since I was a young NCO. Oh, so many moons ago.
Mm-hmm. Private Christ.
Why does the Army invest so little in the NCO Corps as far as education?
It's actually it's an interesting question, because they do, right? When it comes to like, if you compare it and it's relative to how much they invest in the officer PME, right? Professional military education. But if you compare it to the rest of the world, the United States Army invests more in their NCOs than anybody else, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I know for a fact, like PMEs, at least at the NCOA schoolhouse, it's much less check the box than it used to be, right? It used to be a lot of check the box, like just going through death by PowerPoint. It's not like that anymore. The POIs are super powerful, especially for the senior leader course. Unfortunately, the E8 course, right, the master leader course, it's slave to the Army's POI, and they can't get it. And you're only doing it like 2 weeks. You don't have enough time to teach that information in a way that allows for somebody to understand it to the point of critical thinking. It's just too much stuff. There's no way to do it. And the Army does that because of time and, National Guard and all those people. Whereas like courses like the senior leader course, you have 6 weeks now. That's a very powerful POI. It actually teaches you. And I've had tons of people come back to me after a year like, you know what, I thought that was kind of all BS. But like now that I'm in this position now, I see like I've learned everything. I've used everything that I've learned there. So I think that it's come a long way since you were there.
I'm sure.
But
I'm sure. But it has always concerned me that the Army spends so, yes, comparative to, and pretty much anywhere else in the world, we obviously do invest a lot in our NCO Corps, and we have a stronger NCO Corps than probably any other military on the planet. Yeah. However, you can't teach someone to be a leader in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. You can't teach someone to be a next level leader in 4 weeks. And then a few years down the line, you can't teach someone to now be in charge of, the lives of 30-ish soldiers as well as subordinate leaders and allegedly mentoring a young officer in 6 to 8 weeks. It has bothered me, and I can't. The answer that irritates me the most is because, the NCO Corps is indispensable and the unit can't operate without them. So obviously, we can't take them away from the unit for too long. That's a load of crap. Mm-hmm. I think that there should be more development into the NCO Corps as far as time and formal education, especially since over the last 15, 20 years, advanced degrees have become they are a requisite for upper level senior promotions.
I'm simply even like an undergraduate, like people, when you get out, people don't care that you have a degree, but they care if you don't have one. And so they don't even care what your degree's in. That's a good way of putting it, yeah. But if you don't have one, you're not going to get even those base level jobs, right? Same thing with advanced degree. But people don't care what it's in. They're going to check your GPA. But if you don't have it, it's just the door doesn't open for you, right? It's just okay.
Yeah. No, you spent some time at the NCO Academy. I didn't know if it was anything that you.
We are more accredited now, so you do get a ton of credits now for your PMEs. That's cool for most of your degrees. But yeah, it's always been a back and forth with the Army. Like one of the first things I always try to cut is the budgets for NCO academies, and most NCO academies are operating like they don't have, like they're just not giving the money that they should have, right?
For a time in the early 2000s, or maybe it was the late 2000s, the E5 leadership course, I think it was already WLC, the Warrior Leaders course. It was down to 9 or 10 days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can't learn how to lead anybody in that time. You should already, if you're going to the course, you should already be in some sort of leadership role or have the potential to be a leader if you've been selected to go to the course. But we were sending private first classes to a 9-day, 10-day course.
Yeah, it's just it becomes check the block at that point.
To be a leader.
So it's always, I think we always got to make sure that we're not just checking the block, right?
Right.
Yeah.
If it becomes check the block, then don't do it. There's nothing. If it's worth checking the block, it's just worth not doing. But if it's actually worthy, then make it worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you the chess piece analogy real quick. I always give people, it's like the way it's supposed to operate with the military, right? The way it is supposed to be set up and the way it's supposed to be visualized is that when you come in, you're allowed to be and expected to be the chess piece, right? You're supposed to dedicate your time to knowing your individual tasks and how you move around the board, right? Yeah, so you're using your personal weapons, your individual medical stuff, like all those different things. And that's training. But as you move up in rank and the Army promotes you to be a non-commissioned officer, they expect you to now do more, but not actually know more. So now you've got all this experience, but now you need to invest in some book learning, right? Now you need to understand the education piece and tie that with the training piece, because training and education is different. People often confuse, like, oh, why didn't see SLC? Aren't you doing that? It's like, no, that's training. Like here we're doing education, right? We're more in the mind, because you got to be able to have the understanding to do the practical application part. But then you start to move up, and now they you're going to get promoted. They're not promoting you because they think you're cool or you deserve extra money. They're promoting you because they want you to do more things and understand more. So now they want you to be the chess player. And as you move up in rank, right? Now you're as an E7, so now you're the chess player. Now you need to take a step back and even take your own time to really understand and appreciate doctrine, understand and appreciate the rules and regulations. Arm yourself with what's in the box, right? The box is all those things. So you can't operate outside the box. You're not just saying that you're doing it. You understand the box because you've taken the time to educate yourself, and not just to where you have chauffeur knowledge, to where you can just regurgitate what you heard in the back, right? No, you actually have a solid understanding. You just know the words. And that's what the Army expects. So now you've taken a step back. Now you become the chess player. So now you can actually visualize the whole board, and you understand how all the pieces work, and you can start using the pieces in a way that makes sense. And then as you move to E8 and E9, like, okay, now the Army expects you to be the chess master, which takes you even taking a further step back and really start nerding out on some of this book stuff that's not training, it's education that way. Because, when I walk into an officer's office and I've got all these valor awards and I can kick in doors, like, he doesn't care. You know what he cares about is, can I play the game effectively? Do I know the rules of the game, right? So when you're going to these PMEs, like the big thing is like, know the rules of the game and understand the game, so you can dominate the game. Like you're never going to show up to a Monopoly game with 4 people and sit down and not know the rules of the game and expect to win, right? No. Know the rules of the game. And then once you know the rules of the game, then you can start like manipulating them a little bit and playing. But you got to know the rules of the game if you want to win the game. So that's when you come to the PMEs and you're starting to dig in all these books and the theory and the law and fiscal authorities and what is United States Code and all this stuff. It's like, oh, it's lame. Like, no, because now you're getting paid more. You need to understand the rules of the game, or just stay as an E6. There's nothing wrong with it. If you don't want to do that, then stay as an E6. But you're not entitled to make E7. You're not entitled to make E8. But if you want to do that now, you got to take a step back so you can actually stay relevant. You see so many E9s that make themselves irrelevant in the military because they don't stay up on that aspect and the education aspect. So when they're in a room, like I knew when I walked in as a battalion S3 and I had all my, or even a team sergeant, I had all my books, right? All my, the STRAC manual and all your 350-1s, and they were tabbed out and highlighted. Like, and I sit down with all the staff officers and the man, like, they don't know what they're talking about, but they know that I know what I'm talking about because I'm walking in with everything. They're probably just going to give me what I want because they don't want to look like an idiot in front of the boss. So when they start arguing stuff like, hey, let me tell you S3XY, you owe me a 2-year out, like, battalion training plan. And I'm not making it up. It's just right here on page 4 of, First Fix 50-1. And the Army says the same thing. The Army says, the commander will give me training guidance on these specific months every year. Like, I don't have it. I'm saying that this is a requirement by the military. I'm not making it up, right? So
right.
It's not because I think it's a good idea. Like, because I know the rules of the game. When I walk into the commander's office, say, hey, sir, I need 100,000 rounds of ammo. I need $80,000 in money. I need you to underwrite this risk and do this. And, this isn't, I'm not asking this of me, but look, right here, this is what it says in these, higher guidances and manuals and whatnot. This is just what it is for me to be a T at what you're asking me to be a T on. So you can obviously just tell me no, but you're the one taking the risk. When you say that I'm a T and I'm not a T.
That's your decision to make.
Yeah, and just do the real, like, in training, you have the TPU thing where everybody's trying to be trained, right? Like, don't be a T until the end. That's all the game too. Like, no, because if I say I'm this awesome right here up front, like, why is the commander going to give me any resources? I'm already good. He's going to give the team that needs it. So no, man, I suck until the very end. I feel like everything I need. Now I'm a T, right? But that's understanding the rules of the game.
We learned so much,
so you can play the game properly. And that's back to your PME question. It's like, do we need to do a better job of it? Absolutely. But it's also like you see so many people that go, "Oh, this is stupid and it's lame." Like, it's actually not. If you actually understand these things, now the next role you're going into. Now you can dominate and play the game. You can be much more effective and more valuable in that role to your team because now you're playing the game appropriately and not just relying on your own innate genius and ability to reinvent the wheel, thinking that you're so awesome that you're just going to go in here and change the world. Like, no, man, if we were geniuses, we wouldn't be doing this job.
Which gets back to your previous point about hubris, right?
Yeah,
if like you can't operate outside the box if you don't even know the box.
Right. And I say all this being the offender that was, obviously like thinking I was awesome and everything, right?
No, we've all done it, of course.
Because it's that like as a human, like looking back, like, yeah, I'm a hypocrite, but I feel like if you're not being a hypocrite, you're probably not learning your lessons in life, right? It's like I tell people, like, look, man, I'm telling you as somebody that was doing the same thing you're doing, but like, here's the right answer.
Yeah. What's like parenthood, right? When you say, tell your kids, don't do this thing, and they say, well, you did it. You're like, 100% exactly.
That happens. Like, my son found a bunch of old report cards, and once upon a time after he got in trouble for grades, he was like, what? I was like, yeah.
It's true. I was a dirtbag.
Right.
All right, well, let's wind this down a little bit. We got a couple more to kind of take it out. So what are you working on now? As you're retiring, what's your main project?
Kegels.
Yeah, it's
I
important.
do like 15,000 a day.
It
Yeah.
is important.
I want to be ready for prison if it happens. Everybody laughs like no, like after my back fusion and everything, like literally, like the therapist like no, just do a ton of Kegels because that's all you could do, right? And
Yeah.
like, but no, yeah. So because I was going to get out 2 years ago, I started a consulting company with the help of one of my buddies, Michael Ritter, with the sole purpose of, hey, I'm probably going to do 4 jobs a year with him, but it allows me to learn business acumen and learn how to build an LLC and learn everything I need to know when I get out. So that's been really cool. And, it's not making a ton of money. I would take leave, and I would go do a job with him, and I learned. I look at that as no different than college. Like you invest the money to go to college to learn, that's the same thing there. That was, for me doing that. And it's been said. The only reason that thing exists is to do that, right? So, and that's been crazy. Like I've learned a ton about the business world doing that. And then about a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, like the owner of Hatchet Brewing Company, local brewing company, SF officer that wasn't in the company with me came to me. He's like, Chuck, I got this idea. I want to start like a peer mentorship program where we're just like helping people. I was like, okay, I'm listening. And he's like, I really like this word arete, this concept of arete, which is an old Western philosophy concept. Where
it's a Greek word for excellence and or virtue.
It is. So it's different than just being good at something. You're doing it through virtue. So
it's moral virtue.
It's moral virtue. But what it is like, okay, you're dedicating yourself to habits in whatever virtues you're trying to be a part of. That's what you want your being to be. That's the type of human you want to be. And through habit, it goes back to you're investing in yourself and doing that in order to have a positive impact on your friends, your family, your communities, and society, right? So it's being selfish for selfless reasons. So not just being selfish because you want to be, this person, but you're investing in yourself and in eternal self-development because you know that makes you a more valuable human being, and being a more valuable human being allows you to be more valuable to others. Because I think that we didn't make just being a good human being cool again, right? Like
I agree.
Right? Just work on being a good human being. I think you know what the secret to leadership is? Just be somebody worth being around. Be somebody worth following. Be a good human being. That's it. That's the secret to leadership. Don't be an arrogant ass. There's times to throttle it over here and just be that right, but you probably don't need to like operate in that bandwidth all the time. Right? You probably need to scale it back. Same thing. There's times to be like more hands on, but again, it's probably not the thing to operate in all the time. So we created this entity called Objective Arete. And, we've launched a website. We've got a podcast. We asked our buddy Mike Labrie to be the podcast host because he's got fabulous hair and he's smarter than we are. and I do the producing on that. And then we have an online journal too. And the whole point of the journal is like when you look at it, it's all topics that can help people mentally, physically, self-awareness, financially. Like we have our domains. We haven't released them yet. I'm not going to say them all here because we're going to protect our IP. We have a whole stuff. We don't claim to have the secrets to success. I don't claim to be the best leader, know everything. But what I do have is a large network of people that are very successful, much smarter than me, that I continually learn from. So as we continually learn, we're going to put that, like we don't make any money off that right now. Like we invested quite a bit of money into this company to make a difference. And eventually it will have to sustain itself, which is fine. We got some offerings coming later in the year that should pay for all that, maybe pay the podcast host. And we got an editor-in-chief, like to pay those people. I don't need to make any money off of it. We invested like $1,000 into books, like a library, because selfishly, we can continue learning.
Yeah.
But then I get to now I can write a paper on what I just learned and publish it on our blog site, right? And then I can have that republished through all the people that we're partnered with that will republish our stuff, so we can get that message out there and just help people. Like we want to have a positive impact on all those around us, and we will create a community. Like people can eventually pay a pretty low price subscription to be part of this community of people that want to have intentional self-development in their own lives for fraternity, right? Always being in that zone of being comfortable with being incompetent and going towards competence, right? Because I think one of the things I learned getting out of the Army, doing the Honor Foundation, was most people I talked to said, out in the outside world, like executives, because you do all this stuff and part of the Army Foundation is talking to all these executives and other people. Now, we really don't like hiring like higher ranking military people or like specifically soft people, because you guys get out, you're just not curious anymore. Like, you think you're entitled and you earned it and this is what the pay you deserve. But the reality is nobody cares what you did yesterday. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. They care about what do you bring to the table today for a company. We're going to pay you X amount of money because we want you to bring this value, and you're not going to come out there like, oh, I want work-life balance. I don't care about that. No, they want you to bring some value to their company, and they want you to be curious because you're going to learn a whole bunch of new stuff. You're going to be, you're not going to be competent in that area, and learn it and then apply it and be willing to trudge through a bunch of nonsense and adversity again, right? So. I was like, man, that's a problem. And looking at some recent studies with how many younger people have contemplated suicide or committed suicide or say they suffer from extreme depression, the numbers are staggering. It's like close to 50% of our youth say they suffer from extreme depression, right? To me, it's a problem. So our target audience is kind of between 25 and 35, but it's for anybody really trying to get ahead of this issue in society where people, they see all these role models of these influencers like, oh, fast cars and this, and here's the secret to success. And man, the secret to success is just doing hard stuff and embracing adversity and knowing that, hey, man, I'm going to take anything that comes in my path and I'm going to change that into something that's a friction point and turn it into something that's a win for me, right? Like,
as a society, we used to know that.
I do that. Like, I mean, all my wounds, like, man, I was on like 13 tabloids a couple years ago. Like, I managed to take all that and turn that into one. Even the soldier that put me in those tabloids that I'd fired once upon a time, and that guy's doing great. And I recently hired him to do a bunch of work with his son on a rental property. And he got kicked out of the Army. He lost his Special Forces tab. He tried to go after my career. That's okay. It's still my job as a leader to invest in that person regardless. And near the end, that guy was like, "Hey, man, I was part of the problem, with everything, obviously, because I couldn't take accountability for my own actions." He was like, "I see that now." He's like, "I deserve everything I got. I understand it. I wish I, would have taken your advice when you fired me in Syria and said that, hey, man, I needed an ego check, right?" He's like, that's exactly. And unfortunately, it took him going all the way to the bottom, right, losing all that to really realize it. But he's doing great now. He's got a great job. He spent a lot more time with his family. And that's okay. That's a win for me, right? And like you Google me now, like you're gonna find some of the tabloid pieces, but they have the truth in there, right? Right? They're like, okay, this is what actually happened, which is cool to me. I think that, taking all those like life is never gonna stop throwing a bunch of crap your way. It's never gonna end. So if you can't learn to like, come on, man, like bring it. Let's do this. Then you're always gonna be in this state of like, oh man, life is just always against me. Life is against you. It's against you, man.
From the moment you're born,
the moment you're born. So learn to take that and be like, yep. And people, we're all pains in the ass. I'm a pain in the ass. You two are pains in the ass. Like, man, we're emotional beings. Like to think that we're somehow this logical being, like we're not. We're baseline emotional, like cavemen, right? And like it takes a conscious effort every day just to be like this logical person and make rational decisions, right? Just accept it, man. Accept that we're all screwed up. You're gonna make mistakes. Like look back on things, be shameful for the stupid things you did. Like I've done plenty of dumb stuff, hurt plenty of people, like done plenty of, like, but take it in, like learn from, like, okay, like how can I avoid doing that again? Like I got to take responsibility for this thing that I did because, I'm responsible for that. Like, okay, well, how do I go about not doing
responsibility and accountability?
Responsibility. I mean, being okay with it. Like, hey, man, every day you're gonna screw something up as a human, right? It's weird that I say that, like, but when you have like a spouse or a girlfriend or something, like there's some like weird thing where like, you'll know you're wrong, but you're like, no, I can't. I'm just digging. I should apologize, but I'm just digging in right now. Like, vice versa. Like I think there should be some stages. Like, why is that? Like that's always kind of crazy. But yeah, I think that's what we're doing with Objective Arte, and people can check us out www.objectivearte.com. Looking for writers, people want to write.
We'll link it in the show notes here too.
Yeah, so check us out. I think we're just trying to make a difference. My measure for success is in 5 years if I've dumped $15,000 into this, and we've legitimately helped 300 people, but it has to go away for some reason. That's success. Or in 5 years, if it's sustainable, like there's a staff, I'm not doing all the editing and all this stuff, and we're paying people to do things, and maybe I'm making like $20,000 a year off of it. That's also success. That's good for me. As long as it's enduring and it's doing its primary mission of having a positive impact on people, I think that's pretty cool, because that goes back to we talked about fulfillment, right? Like I think people confuse fulfillment and success in life. Like you can be super rich and be very unhappy. You can be super poor and be very happy. But like, man, you got to look, like, really do that thought process. Like, man, I'm sitting on my deathbed and I'm looking back at my whole life. Like, am I going to be fulfilled with the things I did? And if you spend all your time like really doing things for yourself, and you got a bunch of money and whatnot, like, are you really going to be fulfilled? Or you can look back and be like, you know what? I know I'm going to be fulfilled. I'm like, you know what? I did spend the majority of my time like really trying to have an impact on the next generation, and I could be, not have that much money, but that's fulfillment for me. I can close my eyes, move on to the next chapter, and I'll be good with that. And that's what we're doing with that, and pretty much everything I do. And the odd thing enough, like people always like, hey, so and so said this, man. Like, people always try to twist that into something, like, not just with this, but in general. Like, there's no way Chuck's like doing a pylon underground just to like do something that makes a positive impact. He's like trying to be the superstar, whatever. That's fine. I find enjoyment when I hear those things. I think it's quite amusing, because it's whatever, man. If you get a problem with me, just come talk to me about it, man. I don't have to agree. But every time I hear that, I think it's amusing. I've learned to embrace those. Be like, everybody's like, why do you do all these trolls online? Like, I just have fun with trolls. Like, if a troll comes to me on the X, like, you guys should check out my X sometime. People come at me all the time, and I usually just post like a picture of a steak sandwich. Like, man, you sound really upset. Maybe you enjoy a steak sandwich. And I keep like hundreds of pictures of steak sandwiches in my camera roll now, and they get so mad, and they'll just like end up arguing with themselves for like days. But generally, a lot of times, like, those trolls will come back. I'd say 50% of them like in a message and be like, hey, man, like, it's interesting how you handled that, and I kind of want to learn, like, how do you do that? How do you not just become this negative person online?
It's like, you're not the person I thought you were.
Yeah, and then they didn't follow me. I have like great conversations, but just trying to be this negative weirdo complaining all the time too, right? It's like, no, man, like, life is gonna suck. And if like you're a Christian person, you look at the New Testament, like, everybody but John the Apostle died like a horrible death. You're like, well, why would he do that? The whole point, like, if you just take it, bro, like, be willing to suffer for what you believe in, right? And life sucks, and it's gonna be full of suffering and stuff you can't control, but you can control what you do, right?
So, from credit card scams to
drugs,
face down, shot in the butt in a
poo gutter,
and poo ditch,
to objective Arte.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do it all again?
Absolutely, I do every single bit of it again. Yeah, I mean, would I change some things here and there? Yeah, like, again, you go back and look. There's some things you're like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that or this, but yeah, it's been great. I used to think about regret a lot, right? But somebody told me recently, it wasn't recently, but like the last couple of years, like, well, if you regret one thing in your life, that means you got to regret everything else. So why regret it?
Every decision you've ever made has brought you to where you are now. And if
right, wrong, or indifferent,
if you are contented with where you are now,
mm-hmm.
then why do you regret anything?
Exactly, like, why do it? So yeah, and talk about shout outs to people, man. Like, I generally never say the name of my medic that's in the helmet cam video because he was doing, but he's retiring. So yeah, like Dan Bogger, like, that's the guy I was talking about. Like, sometimes you gotta, like, just phenomenal human being, man. Just, I have him to thank for my life, obviously. He's online now. You can find him on X, but he's doing like financial services stuff, and I think he's like super smart too. So, and I won't say the names of my team leaders because they're still in, but all those guys, just being able to work around all those just amazing people.
Yeah.
Like, I owe pretty much everything to all those people. Like, our team was very successful, but it wasn't because of me. Like, those guys built all of our SOPs, like all of our inboarding system. They built the culture on the team. I gave it a little nudge, but they're the ones that built it all. They're the ones responsible for it. And, that culture and that team endured for a very long time. I'm sure it endures today too. Like, those things were legit. And people, the amount of like work people were willing to put into it, and just working with, man, I've seen some of these guys just do like stuff I'm like, I would never like have the gall to. That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Just being able to be in this community of people that generally outperform you. Like I said, like, I don't say that jokingly, or like I'm trying to be this humble person by saying I got weak genes and I got to do things like I got to do, like, I've always happened to like train harder than other people to be there, like, but to see the people, how they can perform and what they're willing to do and how smart they are, it's always like motivating to me. It's like, holy crap, like, I got to live up to that ideal, and I'd love to be like this person. That's been cool, and that's one of the reasons I do it all over again, because where else do you get to just travel the world and do all this cool stuff? And sometimes you get shot and stuff, and sometimes really horrible stuff happens. Like, I've got friends that literally got shot through the head, and like they can't use their arms and stuff. Like, stuff happens, but man, they live great lives and they're happy with their lives still.
Yeah.
And they've ended up crushing through that. Getting Justin Menchaca, like that guy, like he literally got shot through the head with an AK, and you see him in the Thor 3 gym every day just training. Like, he wouldn't get back to a team just because his body, like, it just wouldn't work properly. But I mean, he's married. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got, house. He like goes shooting and does everything he wants to do. Man, the guy's like a badass. So yeah, just stuff like that. But yeah, so that's a long answer to your question. Want to do it again? Absolutely.
We can't thank you enough for spending a few hours come down and talking with us, and your story's amazing.
Yeah,
So.
we could certainly talk to you for hours more.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more in there too, but that's kind of the cliff notes. So.
But thanks, Chuck.
That's the PG version. Yeah, man. Thank you guys.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Well, from, shall we say, credit card scam specialist, all the way to an organization dedicated to, bettering yourself, and by yourself, then the people around you, and then the ripple in the pond, right?
Yeah.
What a ride!
I would say, Dan, who among us has not committed credit card fraud or found themselves face down in a poo gutter? Who among us? No, what an amazing story from an amazing guy. We certainly appreciate him coming on the show. But
Yeah.
The episode was on the long side, but again, when you look at somebody who's done the stuff that he's done and the amount of time that he's served, I mean,
Yeah.
we barely scratched the surface.
We
if you
really did.
think about it.
We really did. And I mean, obviously he was very generous with his time. He didn't set a time limit on us. Just said, hey, no, well, let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want to be respectful of his time. Sure. And he does have other things going on. We could have talked to him for so much longer.
Well, we have a relationship
Yeah.
with Chuck now, and so we can work with him
Check
in the future.
check back in with him and in a bit and see how Objective Heritage is
Sure
doing.
thing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So from the top, Dan, he military brat, Air Force brat.
Yeah.
Obviously troubled youth, self-inflicted.
Yep. Had the recruiter show up on his door with his diploma, and what was the other thing? It was what, the contract and the diploma, something like that.
Something like that.
The recruiter just showed up on his door. That is an interesting recruiting approach.
Well, it was a checkmate because
he'd been putting it off.
He made him an offer that he couldn't refuse.
He'd been putting it off for over a year, I think he said. He'd been kind of like pushing him away. But man, once he was in, he dove into it.
Yeah.
I mean, headlong.
Yeah.
His initial enlistment was 3 years, I believe he said, and before his initial enlistment was even up, he was going to selection.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Right. Life comes at you fast.
And then 20 years, multiple Purple Hearts and Valor Awards and wounds and new hips.
He's got 2 new hips, which, if you're keeping score, that means he's now the $6 million man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with all the other reconstruction and stuff he's had done.
Of course.
But he talked quite a bit about his deployment history. And I had not thought about it in quite some time. The 33s. Right? The original mine repellent vehicles.
Not the MRAPs.
No, not the MRAPs. The MG33s, is that what they were?
Something like that.
The one that he got blown up in?
Yeah.
I have not thought about those vehicles in a long time. They, to the best of my knowledge, they did not fare well in the field.
I think Chuck would agree with you if you were sitting here.
I think so too. But you and I had been in some scrapes, shall we say?
Yeah. Not with each other.
Not with each other. I think 3 people in that vehicle died. and
Yes.
he and one other person made it out of there, not unscathed. Obviously, he had basically a 4-year recovery,
Yeah.
and then the other guy
I think he said it was his team leader, I believe.
was
Yeah.
med boarded.
Yeah.
Man, that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight to carry around.
Yeah. That was part of our generation of GWAT soldiers that was the churn for us.
Mm-hmm.
Deploy, come home, train, deploy, come home, train,
Yeah.
deploy, come home, train. I certainly hope, for many reasons, I hope we never go back to that.
No.
But it kind of, it has a tail on it because you've got the guys who signed up for it, who are there doing the fighting and the training. Then you have a second demographic, and that's the people who choose to join during that period. And now that we're through the GWAT and on the other end of it, whatever we're calling where we are now, the new operation environment, now we have younger and very, very different people who are joining the military, and just because of the nature of the operational environment, they're joining for very different reasons. So it's almost kind of like, in a way, it's almost like the pre-9/11 Army again.
In a way, yes, but also no, because a lot of them that are joining are the children of the GWAT vets,
Yeah.
and they have seen what it does to their parents. That operation tempo,
Yeah.
and you know the wounds and chaos, and you know they've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they are still choosing to serve anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's a good thing. I'd like to be on the optimistic side and say that, you know, my kids or your kids or you know, Chuck's kids, having parents that have experienced that, and then growing up with parents who have those experiences, I think that would be beneficial down the line.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to think. I don't know that to be true. Well, that's, you know, yet to be.
Well,
yet to be discovered.
multi-generational military families, right? I mean, that's always ongoing. So it's going on now. Mm-hmm. So that includes our generation's kids.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how reflective and contemplative he is about his career. And as he's going through the tail end of his retirement process now, he'll be out this summer. He's had plenty of time through some of his surgeries and everything to really reflect on his career and what it all means. And I also had that advantage. A lot of guys don't. They just run right up to the finish line. But he's been kind of able to downsize his way out, kind of like I did, which is important. I think that'll help him on the other side of retirement.
Yeah. He was very, very reflective. And I mean, after a long career, you can't help but at least be somewhat reflective.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back on, you know, his rush to recovery from his first injury to, you know, what's the best way to hijacking his way onto a deployment before he had yet recovered, and then looking back on it and being able to say, you know what, it might have been great that I was there for my guys, but I wasn't at 100%. And how can I really be there for them if I'm not at 100%?
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, you think about it, and you always want to be there for your team, for your people, you know, whether they're your subordinates, your peers, your leaders, you want to be there for them. And if you're not there, you feel like you're letting them down. But if you're not 100%, then how can you be there for them even if you were physically there?
Or worse, you know, are you a liability?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Your presence alone does not guarantee their success. You have to actually be able to accomplish the mission right alongside them. And if you're still recovering from wounds, you know, then, yeah, you become a liability.
All right.
So yeah, but I appreciated that reflection that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We will be in touch with Chuck. We like his current effort with Arate, and we will maintain a relationship with him. And I look forward to working with him in the future.
A side note on that: the word arete is from the Greek, meaning excellence in virtue or moral virtue, meaning you bettering yourself morally, whether it's by honesty or integrity or whatever, improving the positive things about yourself, that kind of virtue. The Romans copied a lot of things from the Greeks,
Yes.
but they took a different twist on virtue. Their word virtus, because the Romans didn't pronounce their V's, strangely enough. Virtus, meaning virtue, was almost entirely martially based, because everything was about the state, the state, the state. And of course, the Roman state was about the martial prowess.
Right.
Just an interesting divergence.
We're both classicists.
Well, you're a classist, that's for sure.
Yes.
But anyway,
In my ratty green T-shirt, yes, very much so.
it's a beautiful Tracer Burnout t-shirt.
Thank you.
That you can go to tracerburnout.com and hit the
Merch.
merch link and
We
get
would
yourself one.
appreciate.
Of course we would.
Okay.
Anything else on Mr. Ritter? I would love to actually have him back and check in with him in like a year's time or
Yeah.
something.
I mean, the truth is, y'all, we could have talked to him for another 2 hours, but at some point we'd be the only ones left.
Yeah.
So we'll figure out a way to keep in touch with him and bring him back around. So
Got a status update from
Yep.
him about objective error time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. All right, then you know what time it is.
I do indeed. Ice cream.
How did you know that I bought ice cream?
I naturally assumed.
I don't actually have ice cream. I do have Freezy Pops.
I accept.
Okay. But
I gave up sweets for Lent, by the way. So I'm talking all this trash, but I shall not imbibe.
then I will have one directly in front of
Okay.
you, and I will constantly say how good it is. That's for the future. But for now, it's free fire time.
It is indeed. You have the smirk on your face already.
Well, it's something that I think can be quite funny, but there are some history is full of interesting epithets that characters get. Some of them are very truthful, based on character or appearance or actions or deeds, and some of them are comical or mocking.
Daniel the Pious.
Yeah. I mean, you've got some great ones, like Charles the Hammer Martel,
What a cool name.
right? Or,
And earned.
Hammer of the Scots, Edward the First.
That's Longshanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also another nickname for him. I mean, you've got some really great ones. I think it's, and I may have this backwards, I think it's Walid Khalif, the early Islamic conquests of North Africa, was the sword of the empire or the sword of destiny, something like that. I mean, that's still a pretty cool one, And then there's always, pretty much every nation of the old world has the just or the lion, or the great. But anyway,
Great often not meaning nice and whimsical, but
yeah. As far as I know, Iceland actually had an early leader called, I think I'm going to pronounce this name wrong, but I'm going to give it a shot. The Deep-Minded. And that's a pretty cool one. That's the only deep-minded that I can think of in history. Regardless.
it's a long wind up.
Here in the New World, we don't really do that. Our political figures, or our leaders, and a lot of this has to do with us being a younger nation, specifically speaking of America. We don't really have nicknames for our presidents. Let's say a few do, with long-standing nicknames. Obviously, they were given nicknames during the time of their political careers or whatever. But Abraham Lincoln is the great emancipator. George Washington is the father of our country, or the American Cincinnatus.
Reagan's the Gipper.
There are a few. Tricky Dick Nixon. Not all of them are positive. Some of them are pejorative. But
Jimmy Carter, history's greatest monster. That's a Simpsons reference, by the way, for any of the youngins out there. Yeah, that's a deep cut.
So, I want you to think back on, obviously, presidents before our lifetime that are long deceased. What president that doesn't have a nickname that you're aware of would you give a long-lasting epithet to? This is how this is how he will be known for the rest of history.
So I can't come up with something like Andrew Jackson being Old Hickory because
it's already. Yeah.
I can't take credit for that one. No. Okay. So I already brought up Reagan. He was not before our lifetime. However, he's no longer with us. So is that fair game?
I'd say go back a little bit further than that.
Okay.
Let's say nothing after JFK.
Okay.
So if you want to call JFK the great syphilitic, then you can.
As we're recording this, literally yesterday was when they released the JFK files. So people are again, of course. So people are feverishly, sorting through them, looking for. I think it's going to be a giant nothing, but but anyway, just to snap this into focus. Okay, I want to lean towards. I think I have the answer.
Okay,
and this is a total troll.
This is totally on you.
This is a trolling of your favorite president, Barack Obama. William McKinley, who was a Civil War hero, was a pretty decent president too, by the way, and was assassinated for his trouble. We named the tallest peak in North America after him, and your favorite president, Barack Hussein Obama, renamed Mount McKinley Denali, which means the great one in the native tongue up there. So, recently, under the new Trump administration, it was named back to Mount McKinley, which I'm all in favor of. And so, to doubly honor President McKinley, who is a Civil War hero, we're going to call him the Great One.
So, William Denali McKinley?
No, the Great One. We're doing
William
it in English
the Great One McKinley.
because and he lived before Wayne Gretzky, so that's, no givesies backsies.
Okay, fair enough.
McKinley was a pretty solid president too, by the way.
I mean, from what I can recall off the top of my head, yes. Until he got assassinated.
Not his fault.
Wasn't it, though? By an alleged anarchist, right?
It was during that.
Oh yeah, when all the anarchists and socialists and all these fringe political movements.
They keep changing jerseys, but they're all the same. Yes.
Yeah. In Buffalo, right? Buffalo, New York. Like he had just gotten back from a trip to Canada or something. Huh. Interesting guy. Apparently, he was a big fan of whiskey and bourbon.
Aren't we all?
Real Americans are.
Yeah. If you look at the counterfactual of this, if McKinley had not been assassinated, then Teddy Roosevelt would not likely have not risen
to
the
prominence.
The political ranks. We also would have never gotten into the Spanish-American War, which was all done under a false pretext. Therefore, we probably would have never annexed Guam, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, etc.
Cuba.
And Cuba, yeah.
And others.
There are others. We're not going to do an exhaustive list here.
Yeah. It's possible. It's possible.
All right, I'm turning the table around on you. How the turntables have turned.
James Madison.
The hammer? Too much? Okay.
James Madison is famous for a few different things. But what I will always remember him for is there's a painting out there of him and his wife or his staff or something fleeing the burning White House. And it's so ignominious. Word of the day, ignominious.
Don't ask me to spell it.
I can spell it. James Burning Man Madison.
Oh, wow. Maybe he was on his way to the Burning Man concert or festival or whatever.
Probably a couple centuries too early.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
The War of 1812 was a disaster. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I blame Canada.
I do too.
Blame Canada.
Yes.
That was the last time the Canadians ever gave us the business. It's pretty much been the other way around. So.
Well, if you go back and you look at those ill-fated excursions, they weren't exactly run by the most competent of people.
Fair.
One person in particular had a very, very dangerous history coming his way, and he has seeped into the shadows of American history, and I think his part in many foul doings should be expunged.
Are you being cryptic on purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Because maybe I want to save that for another time.
Fair enough.
Because he is involved in a very interesting topic that also involves Aaron Burr.
Do you remember the Got Milk commercial from the late 90s where the guy's stuffing his mouth? He's stuffing his mouth with like peanut butter sandwiches, and it's who shot
Who shot Alexander
Hamilton? Hey, Burr!
And he actually gets through on the phone. Yeah.
Another deep cut for the older people.
I remember
all the
that.
other Gen Xers. Thank you.
I remember that. But yeah, I was thinking about the epithets a while back, and I don't know why. The new world, we tend to give nicknames or long-standing typically sports figures, right? Because like Peyton Manning is the sheriff, and the term GOAT gets tossed around way too casually. And in my opinion, there's really only one definitive greatest of all time when it comes to athletics, and that's Michael Jordan. Sorry, hands down. That's it. For his sport.
Okay.
With football, then there's debates to be had.
Yeah.
But
basketball's a sport that lends itself to one person much more than football does. So
yeah, I mean smaller teams, yeah. But obviously with baseball, same thing. You can have too many. But yes, the GOAT gets spun around way too much. But we have a lot of nicknames for famous sports figures. But we don't really do political figures.
Well, it's a little unbecoming in a democracy, I think, because we hopefully are not venerating our politicians quite like you would in a monarchy of old. But
yeah, but I mean, nothing says that the epithet has to be praiseworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, what could we have called it? Taft, William Howard Taft.
Nobody thinks anything.
The skinny?
Taft. Yeah.
The lean?
Yes.
William the Lean Taft?
Yes.
who got stuck in a bathtub in the White House?
He's stuck in a bathtub.
Nothing says that it has
that's a
to
true
be.
story.
Nothing says it has to be praiseworthy. But
The corpulent. All right, we are officially going off the rails.
yes, all right.
We ran long today, everyone. So if you're still with us, if you're stranded or laid out in a hospital bed, we appreciate
Yes.
you.
If you forgot to take your meds,
That's most of us.
that's a callback.
Thank you so much for,
Yes.
for joining us today.
Yep. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Chuck Ritter. Fascinating guy. He's all over the social media, so go check him out. Primarily, I believe, on X.
We'll have them linked in all the socials.
Yeah, all that stuff will be in the socials and whatnot. But remember, if you want to support the show, you can, of course, get something from our affiliates that you'll find in the show notes or on the website. Or if you want to support the show but you don't need stuff, you can head on over to the website and there'll be a little support us button. And you can throw us $1 or $2 and help defray some of the costs.
Yes. Thank you so much. And remember that your service matters.